Chapter 757. This time, it was Yao Qingyun who took the initiative to guide Ning Fan to complete the dual cultivation. Yao Qingyun shook her body with all her might. She closed her eyes and let out a soft moan. The desire poison in her body was being absorbed by Ning Fan bit by bit. Ning Fan also closed his eyes and enjoyed the dual cultivation this time. At the same time, he inspected his own body and controlled the circulation of the desire in his body to absorb the poison of desire from Yao Qingyun's body bit by bit. The third Yin spirit of the steel of sun and moon had been completed, and the profound Yin world had been upgraded once again. It could stay for 10 years at a time. As the power of desire circulated within his body, a new physique was slowly taking shape. The power of desire slowly flowed into Ning Fan's bones. Every single one of the 206 bones in his body became as warm as a piece of jade. As all of the power of desire flowed into his bones, his body gained the physique of the bone of 6 desires on top of the great 5 elements physique. Most of the 6 desires bones were innate constitutions, and very few people could cultivate it after birth. The possessor of this physique was born to cultivate the dual cultivation technique through harvesting and replenishing. With the bone of desire in his body, Ning Fan's resistance against the power of desire had greatly increased. Moreover, he could even directly pluck female cultivators who were at the second level of the true immortal realm despite being at the life immortal realm who were many levels higher than him. He had the bone of desire, which could protect him from death by plucking high-level female cultivators. As a cultivator of the yin-yang transformation, he had naturally heard about the physique of the 6 desires bone. He had never thought that he would be able to cultivate the bone of desire one day. This was a pleasant surprise. Once the bone of desire was formed, Ning Fan's speed in detoxifying Yao Qingyun's poison became much faster. Suddenly, he flipped over and pressed Yao Qingyun down. Yao Qingyun, who was closing her eyes and enjoying the position of the woman on top of the man, was suddenly pressed down on the cold ground by Ning Fan. She couldn't help but moan softly and her fair legs wrapped around Ning Fan's waist. She was very cooperative with Ning Fan. Yao Qingyun opened her blurry eyes and panted lightly as she pretended to sneer. Pressing down on this empress's body. You're very proud, isn't it? So what if I am? Pa pa pa, pa pa pa. 2 hours later, the desire poison in Yao Qingyun's body was completely purged. Once again, she hugged Ning Fan tightly and exposed herself shamelessly. Fortunately, Ning Fan had also released his scorching heat, leaving the scorching heat in her body. Seeing this, Yao Qingyun smiled in satisfaction and pretended to be disdainful. So you're nothing more than this. I still want to continue, but it seems like some people can no longer take it. Ning Fan's eyes turned gentle. He gently moved his clone and Yao Qingyun immediately let out a soft hiss. That sense of pleasure slowly receded, and only then did she realize how much pain her body was in, as if it had been torn apart 1,000 times. Then, he looked at his body and saw the bruises. He touched his lips, which were already slightly red and swollen. His entire body was as soft as mud, as if someone had dismantled his skeleton. Only her chest was gently moving up and down, sticking to Ning Fan's chest. Is it still uncomfortable here? Do you still need a massage? Ning Fan's hand caressed Yao Qingyun's soft chest. Yao Qingyun immediately revealed a look of shame and indignation. She recalled how she begged Ning Fan to rub her chest when the poison of desire was acting up. Scram! After recovering some of her strength, Yao Qingyun pushed Ning Fan away and sat up from the ground, glaring at Ning Fan with dissatisfaction. After what happened today, she realized that it was already very difficult for her to show the dignified demeanor of an elder in front of Ning Fan. Yao Qingyun stroked her messy hair and pretended to be calm and said, "What happened today was consensual. I don't blame you. You also can't blame me for this matter. There won't be a next time. Do you understand? There really won't be a next time. Then, how are you going to solve it if you feel uncomfortable?" Ning Fan looked at Yao Qingyun's white chest with a faint smile. You still want to help me? Could it be that you have already fallen deeply in love with my body? Yao Qingyun looked at Ning Fan with a cold smile. However, she was in a good mood. You have good taste. Since that's the case, I'll give you an extra favor and allow you to help me when I'm feeling uncomfortable. Yao Qingyun waved her hand and caught the storage pouch that fell on the ground. She took out a copper basin and a silk towel. With a flick of her finger, the copper basin was immediately filled with clear water. After wetting the silk towel, Yao Qingyun did not hesitate and began to wipe her body in front of Ning Fan, washing away all kinds of liquid. After that, she took out new clothes and put them on one by one. It was a beautiful scene to behold. Ning Fan also took the storage pouch and secretly picked up a jade slip from the ground. After changing his clothes, he put the jade slip into his sleeve again. He could not help but laugh at himself. What I did just now was really crazy. I even threw the jade slip that contained the attack of an immortal venerate on the ground. If Shadi finds out about this, will he blame me? During the time when the two of them were changing their clothes, Ning Fan told Yao Qingyun about his speculations about the fourth person and some trivial matters. Yao Qingyun was already considered as one of them. There was no need to hide anything. Yao Qingyun's phoenix-like eyes were unprecedentedly solemn and shocked when she heard that a mid-thought-shattering death puppet had entered the underground palace, and that there was an even stronger thought-shattering old monster hiding inside. After a long time, she smiled self-mockingly and gritted her teeth. Thought fragmentation old monster isn't someone I can fight. I didn't expect that he has thought fragmentation old monster behind him. It seems like I can't avoid this calamity anymore. Forget it. The desire grand formation of the sixth floor is weakening bit by bit. The moment the formation light weakens, the enemies outside will surely appear. At that time, I'll try to stop all the strong enemies. After that, you should try your best to escape from this place and bring Lu Lan and Yan Hong back to the slaughter palace. Stupid woman, you want to sacrifice your life to save me? Ning Fan's heart softened. He reached out his hand and stroked Yao Qingyun's cheek. Yao Qingyun was only an early Szechuan Kong expert. She was far from being a match for thought fragmentation old monster. There were 2 thought fragmentation old monsters and 3 Szechuan Kong experts outside. Yao Qingyun wanted to stop all the enemies by herself and create an opportunity for Ning Fan to escape. If that was the case, she would certainly die. Yao Qingyun's heart skipped a beat when she felt Ning Fan's gentle touch. She quietly shifted her gaze and slapped Ning Fan's hand away with an unnatural expression, revealing her usual cold smile. Don't think too highly of yourself. I risked my life to save you because I want you to bring Lu Lan and Yan Hong away from this place. I owe them my life. I can't let anything bad happen to them. Bring them back to the slaughter palace. If there's a chance, please take good care of them for me. Don't be afraid. I won't let you die. Ning Fan said with a serious expression. Afraid? Why would I be afraid? Yao Qingyun subconsciously sneered at Ning Fan without even thinking about it. However, when she met Ning Fan's unprecedentedly serious eyes, her state of mind was in a mess. She didn't know what to say. Yao Qingyun's waist tightened and she was pulled into Ning Fan's embrace. Uncharacteristically, she didn't push him away. Don't be afraid. I'm here. None of them will be able to escape. The cultivation base of the man in front of her was obviously not as profound as hers. However, he gave her an unprecedented sense of security which made her willing to believe Ning Fan's seemingly ridiculous words. Ning Fan, are you really at the peak mortal profound realm? Yao Qingyun leaned into Ning Fan's embrace and asked softly. Yes. Then, how are you going to protect me? There's no need to ask. Just follow me closely. Don't leave my side even for half a step. Ning Fan smiled and loosened his embrace. Then, he pulled Yao Qingyun behind him. His eyes flashed with cold light as he stared at the formation light of the 6th floor. That formation light finally disappeared completely at this moment. At the moment when the formation light disappeared, 4 figures stepped on the stairs and walked into the 6th floor step by step. They were Fei He, Jun Linyuan, old ancestor Wei Chen and the cloaked elderly man. Fei He smiled sinisterly when he saw the torn clothes on the ground and smelled the lingering warm atmosphere of this place. Jun Linyuan nodded in satisfaction while old ancestor Wei Chen glared at Ning Fan with murderous intent. This scene reminded old ancestor Wei Chen of the bloody truth. Yao Qingyun had already been devoured by Ning Fan and she was now groveling under Ning Fan's body in pleasure. He understood that this was the most important step in his plan. He could not stop Yao Qingyun from losing her virginity, nor could he stop the jealousy and resentment he had towards Ning Fan. He took a step forward. Sword chi surged around his body. The 4 sword cases behind him emitted sword hums and the entire space of the 6th floor began to tremble. He wished he could kill Ning Fan with a single sword strike to vent the hatred in his heart. Stop! The cloaked elderly man suddenly let out a cold snort. A vast aura force suddenly swept towards old ancestor Wei Chen. All of a sudden, the sword chi around old ancestor Wei Chen collapsed. He felt a sharp pain in his chest and took a few steps back. His face was already pale and blood trickled down from the corner of his mouth. He was a dignified early shedding void realm cultivator, but he actually could not withstand the cold scolding of the cloaked elderly man. It's him. Yao Qingyun clenched her fists tightly. Her nails pierced deep into her palms. Her phoenix-like eyes gradually revealed despair. The other party really had the broken thought fragment. Moreover, that broken thought fragment was so strong that it could severely injure an early shedding void realm cultivator with just a single word. It was far from what she could defeat. She remembered that the cloaked elderly man in front of her was the person who had requested to meet the previous clan leader of the Yao clan. After this person appeared, she was planted with the desire poison by the immortals of the Yao clan. It turned out that this was a trap that had been set up a long time ago. Today, she really could not escape death and Ning Fan would most likely die here with her. Fragmentary thoughts, who here was a match for the cloaked old man? Don't be afraid. Ning Fan's indifferent words seemed to have boundless magic power. In an instant, it swept away all the uneasiness in Yao Qingyun's heart. Ning Fan raised his head and stared coldly at the cloaked elderly man. His eyes met the latter's solemn gaze. Where did the puppet threads in your body go? The cloaked elderly man asked with a stern voice. If you want to know, then get your true body out here. As soon as Ning Fan's words fell, he suddenly lifted his foot and stomped on the ground. This stomp did not contain much power, but it contained some kind of indescribable divine ability. All of a sudden, the boundless power of desire surged towards the 6th floor of the underground palace. The power of desire in the entire 6 Desires Palace was instantly thrown into chaos and the general trend was shifted. In the 5th floor of the underground palace, the thousand-eyed elderly man who was hiding in the yellow sand was suddenly forced out of his body by the power of desire. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Then, he was overjoyed. The bone of 6 desires. If the thousand-eyed elderly man's prediction was correct, the reason why Ning Fan could stomp on the 6th floor of the underground palace was because of the power of the bone of 6 desires in his body. With a sway of his body, he disappeared from his original spot and reappeared in the 6th floor of the underground palace. He stared at Ning Fan greedily. The aura force of the peak thought fragmentation realm swept across the entire 6th floor of the underground palace. As soon as she saw the thousand-eyed elderly man, Yao Qingyun's eyes widened in shock. Even Fei He, Jun Linyuan and old ancestor Wei Chen were shocked. They had always known that the cloaked elderly man was a corpse and there was a controller behind the cloaked elderly man. However, they had never seen who that controller was. This was their first time seeing the true appearance of their master. The mental seal in their sea of consciousness reminded them that the thousand-eyed old monster in front of them was their master. Master! The 3 of them did not dare to be negligent. They immediately cupped their fists and greeted old monster Qian Yen. Their faces were filled with fear. Old monster Qian Yen, however, did not even look at the 3 of them. He just stared at Ning Fan greedily and passionately while muttering 2 words under his breath. Perfect. Ning Fan was indeed the most perfect vessel. It was not in vain that he had waited so many years to carry out his plan. The bone of 6 desires. Moreover, it was the bone of 6 desires that was flawless. One should know that even though immortal King 6 Desires possessed the physique of the bone of 6 desires, his physique was damaged by someone due to an accident. Ning Fan, on the other hand, possessed the perfect and flawless bone of 6 desires. If he obtains Ning Fan and devours everyone here, he would achieve grand completion in his 3 Dao paths. Not only would he have the chance to defeat all the immortal kings who had undergone the 5 tribulations of the eternal era and surpass immortal King 6 Desires, he would also have the chance to step into the 6th tribulation realm and become an immortal emperor. Give me your body. Old monster Qian Yan approached Ning Fan step by step. All of the 1,000+ eyes on his body were filled with greed. Even though there was a slight change in his plan where the 184 puppet threads disappeared for no reason, it did not hinder the execution of the entire plan. In the eyes of old monster Qian Yan, Ning Fan was just a peak human profound realm cultivator after all. As for Yao Qingyun, who was standing behind Ning Fan, she was only at the early shedding void realm. Thus, she could not protect him. Today, he revealed his true body and personally took action. Even if Ning Fan had 3 heads and 6 arms, he would still become his vessel in the end. Facing old monster Qian Yan who was approaching him step by step, Yao Qingyun could only feel her breathing becoming sluggish. She could not resist the aura force of the old monster at all. Ning Fan took a step to the side and stood in front of Yao Qingyun. He resisted all of the aura force all by himself. Aura force could not hurt him. He possessed the bone of 6 desires. Unless one is an immortal venerable at the eternal ancient realm, they could forget about subduing him with aura force. Looking at old monster Qian Yan who was approaching him step by step, the cold light in Ning Fan's eyes became sharper and sharper. Initially, he thought that the 4th person would at most be at the late thought fragmentation realm. He did not expect that the 4th person was actually at the peak thought fragmentation realm. It seemed like he had made a slight miscalculation. However, he could not be blamed. Old monster Qian Yan had planted the puppet threads in the cultivators of the Jun family through the cloaked corpse. Judging from the puppet threads alone, it was easy for him to miscalculate old monster Qian Yan's true cultivation base. However, so what if he miscalculated? Not to mention that old monster Qian Yan was only at the peak thought fragmentation realm, Ning Fan also had the means to protect himself. At this moment, old monster Qian Yan actually had an extremely uneasy feeling. Before he could figure out why he would feel uneasy facing a peak human profound realm cultivator, Ning Fan suddenly turned his hand and took out a golden jade slip from his sleeve. Then, he crushed it. At the moment he crushed the golden jade slip, an ancient aura force spread out from Ning Fan's body. Under such a powerful aura force, Fei He, Jun Linyuan and old ancestor Wei Chen's faces were filled with terror. Their bodies could not help but tremble. Under such an aura force, even old monster Qian Yan trembled slightly and exclaimed in disbelief. The attack jade slip of an immortal venerable. Not good. Run. Without any hesitation, old monster Qian Yan's body flashed and he fled to the 5th floor. At the next moment, a gigantic shadow of a great golden emperor suddenly appeared behind Ning Fan. The shadow of an immortal emperor. One of the divine abilities of an immortal emperor. Immortal emperors used their sovereign qi to refine their emperor qi. They used their sovereign shadow to refine their emperor shadow. This step was the most important step in becoming an emperor. At the moment when the emperor's shadow appeared, Yao Qingyun's red lips parted slightly. She stared at Ning Fan in disbelief. She could never imagine that Ning Fan actually had such a terrifying trump card. It was a jade slip that contained an attack of an immortal venerable. Moreover, it was personally condensed by an immortal emperor. Even though the power of this jade slip was the attack of an immortal venerable from the first eternal tribulation, because it was condensed by an immortal emperor, this attack was almost at the top of the first eternal tribulation. Even a first tribulation immortal venerable would find it hard to resist it, let alone a true immortal realm cultivator who was below the first eternal tribulation. With this jade slip, how could Fei He and the others be a match for Ning Fan? No wonder he gave me an unprecedented sense of danger before I entered the blood pool that day. So this is the reason. At the moment when the Emperor's shadow appeared, Ning Fan changed his hand seal. The gigantic Emperor's shadow behind him immediately raised a finger. The finger melted the golden light and pressed it down. Emperor technique, finger shattering 1,000 army. Fei He stared at the incoming golden light in disbelief. The golden light was too fast. It was so fast that he did not have the time to make any defensive or evasive movements. He was going to die under this golden light. At this moment, he was filled with regret. He regretted why he had provoked Ning Fan. Originally, he thought that Ning Fan's cultivation base was low and he was weak and easy to bully. At most, he just had a slightly better innate talent. He did not expect that Ning Fan actually had such a terrifying trump card in his hands. At this moment, Fei He finally understood. Ning Fan had shown weakness time and time again in the past. He was just toying with him. Bang! With great unwillingness and fear, Fei He let out a blood-curdling scream and was crushed into a pile of filthy flesh on the ground by the finger light. His primordial spirit was instantly destroyed. Jun Lin Yuan's old eyes that were blurry from being drunk had already woken up from the shock. Before he entered the 6th floor, he did not put Ning Fan in his eyes at all. However, at this moment, he finally realized how foolish his eyes were. He actually failed to see through Ning Fan's character of pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. Bang! Without any more time to think, Jun Linyuan felt a sharp pain all over his body. He was already killed by the finger light. Old ancestor Wei Qin stared at Ning Fan while trembling all over. His previous arrogance was completely gone. His sword-like eyes glared at Ning Fan with resentment and unwillingness. At the next moment, he died under the finger light. A single finger light from the Emperor's shadow had killed 3 Shikong experts. The finger light seemed to only be able to kill living beings and would not harm or kill them. It was a very mysterious ability that did not cause any damage to the underground palace. The corpse puppet of the cloaked old man was not destroyed by the finger light because it was an inanimate object. However, the puppet strings in its body were all severed by the finger light. It just stood there silently. This corpse had already become a masterless object. The finger light whizzed out of the 6th floor and went straight to the 5th floor, chasing after old monster Qian Yen. As soon as he sensed the finger light that was chasing after him, old monster Qian Yen was so scared that his soul almost left his body. It's not an attack from an ordinary immortal venerable. This is a jade slip that was created by an immortal emperor. This is the finger of the emperor's shadow. Even though it's just the power of an immortal venerable, it's not something I can withstand. How is this possible? How is this possible? He's just a peak human profound realm cultivator. How could he gain the favor of an immortal emperor and be given such a precious jade slip? What exactly is this young man's background? Could it be that he's the descendant of an immortal emperor? Damn it! I can't escape anymore. Azure Burning Fan. As he sensed that the finger light was getting closer, old monster Qian Yan's eyes turned resolute. He no longer tried to escape. He turned around abruptly, took out the fiery fan on his back and fanned it at the finger light. With this fanning, his magical power was almost depleted. Waves of crimson corpse fire burst out from the giant fan and turned into a sea of corpse fire. Under the burning of this sea of corpse fire, 1/10 of the Emperor's shadow finger light's golden light was burned away. If it was any other time, old monster Qian Yen would be very proud to know that his attack could destroy 1/10 of the Emperor's shadow finger light. However, he was not happy at all at this moment. He had used up all of his magical power in this attack. However, he only managed to destroy 1/10 of the finger light. The remaining finger light was enough to kill him. Damn it! Separate and gather sword, slash. Old monster Qian Yen took out the cold jade sword from his waist and slashed downwards. He had actually consumed 97% of his blood essence. The backlash of this slash had almost killed him. Activating the Azure Burning Fan consumed magical power, but the Separate and Gather Sword consumed his own blood essence. This was a magical treasure that dealt 1,000 damage to the enemy and 800 damage to oneself. A crescent-shaped silver sword light slashed across the sky. Wherever the sword light passed, the space was completely shattered. The sharpness of this sword light was enough to split apart a middle thousand immortal world. The sword light slashed on the finger light. Once again, 1/10 of the Emperor's shadow finger light's power was consumed before it disappeared. Old monster Qian Yan looked at the approaching Emperor's shadow finger light in despair. He had used up all of his magical power and blood essence, but he could only block 1/5 of the finger light. I can only use my final divine ability now. Old monster Qian Yan gritted his teeth. He kept away the Azure Burning Fan and the Separate and Gather Sword. He untied all the bandages on his body and tore off all his clothes. In the next instant, his hideous and disgusting naked body was revealed. His body was filled with eyeballs. A single blink was enough to make one vomit. My true self is the Desire Absolution Pearl. I am one of the 3 treasures of the 6 desires. And the Desire Absolution Pearl is a supreme treasure that 6 desires immortal king sacrificed one of his eyes to refine. My true identity is the one eye of the 6 desires. Break. The 1,000 eyes on his body exploded one after another. At the next moment, his entire body exploded, turning into an incomparably huge eyeball. Suddenly, black blood flowed out from the eyeball. As the black blood flowed out, it slowly condensed into a black finger light. The power of that black finger was not much weaker than the Emperor's shadow finger. If old monster Qian Yan really condensed the black finger light, even if it was not enough to block the Emperor's shadow finger, it would be enough to destroy most of the finger light. Even if he was injured by the remaining finger light, he would not die. He would certainly have a chance to escape. Freeze! A distant voice came from the direction of the 6th floor. At the next moment, lines of blood appeared on the giant eye that old monster Qian Yan had transformed into, freezing him on the spot. This technique was used by Ning Fan. It was not enough to freeze him for a long time. At most, it could only freeze him for a moment. Moreover, with the difference in cultivation base between Ning Fan and old monster Qian Yan, forcefully using this technique would definitely result in a severe backlash. Even though this technique was only enough to freeze old monster Qian Yan for a moment, it was enough to kill him. Before the black finger could even form, the Emperor's finger had already landed on his body. A miserable shriek rang out from the giant eye. In the next instant, the giant eye collapsed, and Qian Yan perished. Even until his death, Qian Yan could not understand why Ning Fan could display the heaven sealing technique at the critical moment and prevent him from saving his life. As an Eastern Sky cultivator, how could he not know how dreadful the fixed heaven technique was? Ding Tian, Ding Tian. This old man's death under the famous technique of the Eastern Sky Ancestor Emperor isn't in vain. So this child is actually the successor of the Ancestor Emperor. With such thoughts in mind, old monster Qian Yan's consciousness completely dissipated. In the 6th level of the underground palace, Ning Fan suddenly coughed out blood. He half knelt on the ground and looked extremely dispirited. He had forcefully locked old monster Qian Yan in place. The backlash was not something he could endure. This time, he was going to be seriously injured again. Yao Qingyun hurriedly helped Ning Fan up. Her phoenix-like eyes were still filled with disbelief. The jade slip of an immortal venerable's attack, the ancestral emperor's heaven-setting technique. Why did Ning Fan have so many heaven-defying items? Help me, heal. Ning Fan's face became even paler as he coughed out another mouthful of blood. How should I help you? Dual Cultivation. Chapter 758. It was another round of entanglement for a full 10 days. Within 10 days, Ning Fan had collected all the spoils of war and had dual cultivation with Yao Qingyun for tens of times. With the help of the 9 revolution pills, he finally managed to suppress the injuries in his body. His injuries were only temporarily suppressed. He still needed some time to recuperate before he could fully recover. During these 10 days, Yao Qingyun just cooperated with Ning Fan's treatment. Even though she was full of doubts, she did not ask Ning Fan any questions. Another 10 days passed. With her help, Ning Fan refined all of the 5 elemental powers in the first 5 layers of the Grand Formation. The cultivation progress of the 5 elemental constitutions had each increased by 20%. Due to the limitation of his cultivation base, Ning Fan had wasted too much of the formation power. It dispersed into the surroundings and he could not completely absorb it. Ever since he entered the cave world, he had been planning to patiently wait for the appearance of the 4th person and give him a fatal blow at the critical moment. His plan was so thorough that it was only natural for him to use the power of the Jade Slip to annihilate the enemy in one strike. The spoils of war were extremely abundant. Thousand-Eyed Freak's true body was the desire-severing bead refined from the eye of 6 Desires Immortal King. He also had the Azure Burning Fan and the separate Gather Sword, which were part of the 6 Desires' 3 treasures. Apart from that, Old Monster Thousand Eyes' storage pouch also contained a puppet technique, the Art of 6 Desires. This technique was a puppet technique created by the 6 Desires Immortal King. It could condense the power of desire into puppet strings and control the secret technique, Lust Puppet. Ning Fan had already cultivated the Bone of Desire. If he learns this technique, he would be able to condense powerful puppet threads with the power of his desire sense. He would even be able to slightly control an early shedding Void Realm Desire Worm. After winning this battle, Ning Fan obtained a Mo Luo. The cloaked elderly man who had already become an ownerless item was Ning Fan's Mo Luo. It was a puppet that eccentric Thousand Eyes had refined from the corpse of a mid-thought demolishing eccentric. Refining the Lust Claw was not only extremely time-consuming, but it also required a large amount of money. To be able to obtain such a high-level Lust Worm was a huge gain. Of course, this intermediate thought fragmentation puppet wasn't something that a human Profound Realm cultivator could control. Even if Ning Fan had successfully cultivated the 6 Desires puppet art, it would be impossible for him to control this puppet without a cultivation base that was close to Shikong's. In this battle, Ning Fan had seized 800 billion Dao crystals from the various old monsters. Fei He's Elder Token and Killing Points all belonged to Ning Fan's. Ning Fan looked at his Jade of Slaughter. There were already 18 million killing points, which was equivalent to 180 billion Dao crystals. Other than that, Ning Fan also obtained a Corpse Dao cultivation technique from Fei He, Heavenly Corpse Transformation. This cultivation technique was given to Fei He by Old Monster Qian Yan. It was the Corpse Dao cultivation technique that 6 Desires Immortal King cultivated when he was still alive. It was an 8-star cultivation technique. Compared to the Corpse Devil record, the level of this technique was much higher. Old Freak Qian Yan was quite self-aware. He only cultivated the 6 Desires puppet art, so he groomed Fei He to cultivate the 6 Desires corpse art. He wanted Ning Fan to devour the power of the Sea of Desire after plucking Yao Qingyun and use her as a vessel for his 6 Desires desire technique. If Old Monster Qian Yan could devour Ning Fan, Fei He and the others, he might really surpass 6 Desires Immortal King. Unfortunately, his plan was ruined by Ning Fan alone. It was completely ruined. There were 4-5 Nirvana Immortal Swords hidden in the 4 sword cases of Forefather Fine Dust. Every single 5 Nirvana Immortal Sword could be used as a natal magic treasure of an early-stage void-shedding old monster. When the 4 swords were used at the same time, their power was terrifying. Jun Li Nguyen's wine gourd was a 6 Nirvana Immortal treasure. There was a large amount of spiritual wine in it. If Ning Fan consumes it, his magic power would certainly increase tremendously. Dual cultivation with Yao Qingyun did not cause his cultivation base to skyrocket as expected. However, it also greatly increased Ning Fan's magic power, making him very close to breaking through to the Ghost Profound Realm. Now that he has these spiritual wines, it would not be difficult for him to break through to the Ghost Profound Realm. Other than these items, there were still many other cultivation techniques, secret techniques and heavenly ingredients and earthly treasures. However, they were not worth mentioning here. The power of the Emperor's Shadow's finger was too strong. It directly destroyed the primordial spirits of all the old monsters. It did not give Ning Fan the chance to preserve his primordial spirit and use the spirit blasting technique. Old monster Qian Yan's true form was the desire-dispelling pearl. After he died, he turned back into the desire-dispelling pearl and did not even leave his corpse behind. The corpses of Fei He, Jun Linyuan and old ancestor Fine Dust had already turned into minced meat. The blood and flesh essence of the 3 piles of minced meat was refined by Ning Fan and sent into the cauldron world for Zili to consume. Ning Fan did not know that Zili had secretly shared half of the blood and flesh essence with Mu Weiliang. Hence, after the 2 ladies consumed the blood and flesh essence of the 3 Shikong cultivators, one of them spun a cocoon while the other went into seclusion. Both of them began to break through to the next cultivation realm. This cave world was a trap that was opened by old monster Qian Yan. As soon as old monster Qian Yan died, the entrance of the cave world was slowly disappearing. Ning Fan and Yao Qingyun walked side by side and left the 6 Desires Palace. When she saw the entrance of the black hole gradually disappearing, Yao Qingyun frowned. The entrance of the cave world is about to disappear. Let's leave quickly. If we delay for another 1 or 2 days, we won't be able to leave anymore. Oh right. Give me the Elder Token. You can keep the 6 Desires 3 treasures. You want the Elder Token? Ning Fan was stunned. Suddenly, he seemed to have understood something. He reached out his hand and stroked Yao Qingyun's cheek. Are you worried about me? Humph. Who do you think I am? Why would I be worried about you? Yao Qingyun pretended to sneer disdainfully. However, she did not push Ning Fan's hand away. Instead, she allowed Ning Fan to stroke her cheek. Fine. She was indeed worried about Ning Fan. The Slaughter Palace must have already received the news about Fei He's death. Yao Qingyun must give the Slaughter Palace an explanation for Fei He's death. She did not want others to know that it was Ning Fan who killed Fei He. The reason why she wanted to take away the Elder Token was because she wanted to temporarily keep it for Ning Fan. She wanted others to think that she was the one who killed Fei He so that she could reduce some troubles for Ning Fan. The current Ning Fan might have a very powerful trump card to protect himself. After all, his cultivation base was still low and he might not be able to keep the Elder Token. When Ning Fan's cultivation base becomes stronger, he would be able to deal with old monster Shikong. Then, she would return the Elder Token to Ning Fan and let him obtain the status of an Elder of the Slaughter Palace. As for the 3 treasures of the 6 Desires, she did not have any intention to covet them. Thus, there was no harm in giving them to Ning Fan. Even though the Elder's task was to find the 3 treasures of the 6 Desires, she did not have to complete it. There would be great rewards for completing the Elder's task. Even if she failed, there would be no punishment. She did not plan to hand over the 3 treasures to the sect in the first place. Her original intention of coming here was to find the desire-relieving pearl and keep it for her own use to get rid of the desire poison. Now, after having sex with Ning Fan countless times, the desire-relieving pearl had already disappeared completely. It was useless for her to keep it, so she might as well give it to Ning Fan. Don't worry. I am not even afraid of people like Fei He. No one can take away my Elder Token. Since you have the confidence to keep this token, just keep it with you. With this token, you will be an Elder of the Slaughter Palace and have the right to summon 100 ghost faces. When I return to the Slaughter Palace this time, I will take responsibility for Fei He's death. If others ask about the whereabouts of the Elder Token, I will say that the Elder Token has been temporarily lost. Alright. Just say that the Elder Token is temporarily lost. Even though I have the Elder Token, I don't want to expose it for the time being. Even though I am not afraid of the cultivators of the Slaughter Palace who are coveting the token, I also don't want to cause unnecessary trouble. Ning Fan nodded. Are you really not going to return to the Slaughter Palace with me? Yao Qingyun frowned and asked. During this period of time, Ning Fan had told Yao Qingyun more than once that he wanted to travel around the Eastern Heaven and would not return to the Slaughter Palace for the time being. Traveling was just an excuse. His real purpose was to use the Joss Flame demon puppet to steal the Joss Flame power of the forces in the Eastern Heaven. After reaching the peak of the human profound realm, it was too difficult to continue advancing. When he was at the void fragmentation realm, dual cultivation with Luo Yu was enough for him to break through to the ghost profound realm. When he reached the peak of the human profound realm, dual cultivation with Yao Qingyun failed to break through to the ghost profound realm in one go. He had devoured the Joss flames of the old ancestor of the Yao family for millions of years, but he only managed to break through to the peak of the human profound realm from the early human profound realm. The Joss flame disciples of the old ancestor of the Yao family were countless cultivators in an entire mid-grade star region. The Joss flame power that was exchanged for millions of years from such a large number of disciples was only enough for Ning Fan to break through to the third heavenly layer of the human profound realm. One could imagine how difficult it was to cultivate in the human profound realm. Ordinary people would need to spend thousands or even tens of thousands of years to break through to the next minor realm. The second step of the Tao cultivation realm would become harder the further one advanced. For example, Fei He had been stuck at the early sky shedding realm for millions of years. If Ning Fan did not steal the Joss flame power and use trickery to advance, he would at least be stuck at the immortal life realm for tens of thousands of years. He didn't have tens of thousands of years to squander. He remembered the oath he made with the Slayer. In another 2,000 years, he would take on the mission of protecting the blood world. For the sake of this oath, he must do his best to raise his cultivation level and do his best to possess the strength to protect the blood world within 2,000 years. Yao Qingyun felt a little disappointed when she saw that Ning Fan was in deep thoughts and did not answer her. She still wanted to have a few rounds of dual cultivation with him after returning to the Slaughter Palace. If Ning Fan did not know the Slaughter Palace, she could only give up on this thought. Forget it. Thanks to you, I've finally touched the bottleneck of the middle stage after being stuck at the early stage of Shell Void for 200,000 years. I'm sure I'll be able to break through the middle stage of Shell Void in one go after returning to the Slaughter Palace for seclusion. When you're in seclusion, it'll be hard for me to take care of you. You won't be in the Slaughter Hall, so it's fine for you to stay outside. It's very safe. She comforted herself. Am I going to break through to the mid-shedding void realm? Ning Fan pondered for a moment. All of a sudden, he took out the Jade of Slaughter and made a hand seal. Of the 18 million kill points, only 2 million remained. Ning Fan gave the 16 million killing points to Yao Qingyun. Why are you giving me your kill points? I'm not doing dual cultivation with you for money. Yao Qingyun took out the Slaughter Jade and glanced at it. Then, she let out a disdainful snort. However, the corners of her lips curled up slightly, betraying her good mood. She naturally understood that the reason why Ning Fan gave her the kill points was so that she could buy more pills and Tao fruits to break through to the next cultivation realm. Since he was concerned about her, she was naturally in a good mood. However, she was not stupid enough to show her true emotions. Childish woman, Ning Fan rubbed his forehead. He must have lost his mind before this. That was why he felt that this childish woman was so beautiful. Along the way, he and Yao Qingyun went from being enemies to resolving their enmity. Then, they helped each other and finally, they became extremely intimate. All of a sudden, Ning Fan recalled the words in the Northern Dipper blood world. Half of them were bosom friends and the other half were enemies. Many of the women around him used to be his enemies. Let's go. The entrance is a little unstable. I'm afraid we have to close it in advance. Yao Qingyun was about to grab Ning Fan and bring him out of this cave world. However, Ning Fan shook his head and said to Yao Qingyun, "Wait a moment." He patted his storage pouch and took out an incense burner. He placed it on the ground and lit a few joss sticks. He inserted them into the burner and stood up. Then, he cupped his fists and bowed in the direction of the Six Desires Palace. What are you doing? Yao Qingyun asked doubtfully. Nothing. Let's go. As soon as he finished speaking, both Ning Fan and Yao Qingyun turned into rays of light and flew out of the black hole. The reason why he burned the joss sticks and bowed was to thank Six Desires' immortal king for giving him the opportunity. Corpse Chi, the bone of 6 desires, the 6 desires puppet technique, the 3 treasures of 6 desires. Even though 6 desires immortal king did not give these opportunities to Ning Fan on his own initiative, Ning Fan still felt grateful towards this deceased senior for his kindness. He was too lucky to obtain the corpse chi and the sense power of the Sea of Desire. It was supposed to be a disaster, but it instantly turned into a heaven-defying opportunity. Ning Fan would not be conceited enough to think that he deserved all of these. Due to his great luck, he should be able to obtain these opportunities. Fortuitous encounters, and even more so, fate. Perhaps, he was fated to meet 6 desires immortal king. He had received the corpse chi from 6 desires immortal king and a pond of desire. Now that he had burned the joss sticks, he could be considered to have slightly ended this fate. Not long after Ning Fan and Yao Qingyun left the cave world, the entrance of the cave world disappeared and was completely sealed. Lu Lan and Yan Hong were waiting for Yao Qingyun's return on the 6 Desires planet. Their eyes were filled with worry. Today, the news had already spread across the eastern heaven that the life plates of the old ancestor of the Jun family, the old ancestor of the Tiny Dust sect and elder Fei He of the Slaughter Palace were all destroyed. The 3 of them had died. Lu Lan and Yan Hong only knew that their young mistress had entered the cave world together with Fei He and the others. Since Fei He and the others were dead, their young mistress was probably in danger too. After all, in their impression, the death of the 3 Shikong experts must have been caused by a shocking change in the cave world. They did not think that their young mistress had the strength to kill the 3 Shikong experts. It was even more impossible for them to think that it was Ning Fan or the other 6 Life Immortal Realm Corpse cultivators who killed the 3 Shikong experts. The 2 of them were waiting outside the 6 Desires sect. As soon as they saw Yao Qingyun return safely, they nearly cried tears of joy. Young mistress. Are you alright? Are you really alright? That's great. That's really great. Seeing Lu Lan and Yan Hong's excited expressions, Yao Qingyun's usual cold expression showed a rare hint of gentleness and said with a smile. Don't cry. I'm fine, aren't I? Quickly wipe your tears. She treated the 2 maidservants like her closest family. Both Lu Lan and Yan Hong were stunned. What did they just see? They actually saw a smile that came from the bottom of her heart from Yao Qingyun's face. Even though Yao Qingyun had always treated them well, she had never smiled in such a relaxed manner. Ever since she escaped from the Yao family in a sorry state, Yao Qingyun had never untied the knot in her heart and she had never smiled from the bottom of her heart. However, at this moment, Yao Qingyun's smile clearly came from the bottom of her heart. The knot in her heart had been untied. Young mistress, you. The 2 maidservants were pleasantly surprised. All of a sudden, their faces were filled with shock. Young mistress, your innocence. Your innocence, how could they not see that Yao Qingyun was no longer a virgin? Could it be? Young mistress had fallen into Fei He's trap in the cave world and lost her innocence. Wouldn't she die of agony? Could it be that young mistress was forcing herself to smile because she was afraid that they would be worried? It's him who did it. I'm very satisfied. Yao Qingyun smiled mockingly and pointed at Ning Fan. Lu Lan and Yan Hong naturally disdained to hide anything. What? Both Lu Lan and Yan Hong were stunned. They looked at Ning Fan in disbelief. They could not imagine that Ning Fan actually had the ability to push their young mistress down. A human profound realm cultivator pushing down Shikong was just too shocking. Moreover, young mistress actually said that she was very satisfied with it. Could it be that young mistress took the initiative to push Ning Fan down and was very satisfied with it? It made sense when they thought about it. How could a human profound realm cultivator push down Shikong? It would be more reasonable for Shikong to push down a human profound realm cultivator. All of a sudden, Lu Lan and Yan Hong's eyes were filled with sympathy when they looked at Ning Fan. From their point of view, young mistress must have forced herself on Ning Fan because she did not have anything to vent her lust on. They wondered if young mistress had left any psychological trauma on Ning Fan when she forced herself on Ning Fan. How could Ning Fan not see the sympathy in their eyes? He just smiled without saying a word. Yao Qingyun felt relieved when she saw that the two of them were fine. After mocking Ning Fan for a while more, she was about to return to the Blood Sea Star region. Take this sense-transmitting jade pendant. If you're in trouble, crush it. Even if I'm still in seclusion or give up my seclusion, I will rush over to help you. In the end, Yao Qingyun sent a telepathic message to Ning Fan. Then, she took out an ancient green jade and gave it to Ning Fan. The ancient jade was semicircular and there was a chip on it. It was a jade pendant. As the saying goes, the jade pendant is used to sever a person's heart. In the Eastern Heaven immortal world, jade pendants would only be given to Dao companions when they break up. When the two maids saw that their young mistress actually gave Ning Fan a jade pendant, they felt even more sympathetic towards Ning Fan. They thought to themselves, could it be that our young mistress got tired of Ning Fan after forcing herself on him and gave him a jade pendant to break up with him? Ning Fan naturally knew that Yao Qingyun did not mean that. It was a sense-transmitting jade pendant. Once it is crushed, the person who planted it would sense it and even sense where the jade pendant was crushed. After all, Yao Qingyun still cared about Ning Fan. As long as he was in trouble, she would definitely come to his rescue even if she could not get herself out of it. Ning Fan did not need Yao Qingyun to rush over to his rescue, but he still kept the jade pendant. Ning Fan was very grateful for her kindness. It's good to keep this jade pendant as a memento. Be careful. If you feel uncomfortable, you're allowed to come and look for me. As soon as she finished speaking, Yao Qingyun brought the two maids and left. Ning Fan, on the other hand, stood on the same spot and pondered over Yao Qingyun's words. Then, the corners of his lips curved into an ambiguous smile. This foolish woman. Is she taking the initiative to invite me? After a long time, Ning Fan scanned the starry sky with his spirit sense. He could no longer see Yao Qingyun's expression. He sighed softly and turned into a ray of light, turning around and leaving the Six Desires planet. All of a sudden, a ray of light flew to his side and turned into an old man in Taoist robes with a pleasant face. His cultivation base was at the early True Crossing realm. He cupped his fists at Ning Fan with a smile. Fellow Taoist, you seem to be badly injured. My Six Desires sect has an immortal king palace. There is a star-cold jade bed in the palace which is the best for healing injuries. Fellow Taoist, are you willing to stay in my Six Desires sect for a while and use this cold jade bed to heal your injuries? May I know who you are? Ning Fan cupped his fists to return the greeting. His eyes were slightly stern. He had always been wary of those who were unaccountably solicitous. I am the sect master of the Six Desires sect, Yuan Zong. Fellow Taoist, you don't have to worry. I absolutely do not have any ill intentions towards you. It's just that I saw your shocking innate talent and I reckon that you will certainly have a bright future. That's why I wanted to befriend you. The words of the sect master of the Six Desires sect were very frank. He had taken a fancy to Ning Fan's bright future. That was why he shamelessly came to befriend him. As soon as Ning Fan heard what he said, he did not look down on the sect master of the Six Desires sect. Instead, he had a good impression of him. This person's words were sincere and his purpose was simple. Since he came to Ning Fan's doorstep to please him, he certainly would not reject him. Moreover, as soon as Ning Fan heard about the star-cold jade bed, he was already a little tempted. He wanted to use this bed to heal his injuries. The star-cold jade bed was a healing item made from star-cold jade. The power of the star technique that it contained was extraordinary. There are no more updates. Let's wash up and go to sleep. Chapter 759. The star-cold jade was an extremely precious healing treasure. It was born from the power of the stars in the heavens and had an unparalleled healing effect. Normally, only the great forces above the void-shedding realm could get their hands on some of it and make them into magical treasures and spiritual equipment. Even the sense-breaking sect would find it hard to get enough cold jade to make the bed. However, the Six Desires sect managed to do it. The reason why the Six Desires sect had such a precious cold jade bed was naturally thanks to their ancestor, the Six Desires immortal king. The cold jade bed was a precious treasure that was passed down from generation to generation. Only the sect masters of each generation knew about its existence and were qualified to use it to heal their wounds. The secret of the bed's existence had never been revealed. Otherwise, countless old monsters would have come to the sect to snatch it away. Yuan Zong was the current sect master of the Six Desires sect. He was at the early crossing truth realm. He was almost the last talented person in the sect. Other than him, there was no other crossing truth realm expert in the entire sect. There were only 3 life immortal realm experts and all of them were at the early and mid-human profound realm. Yuan Zong knew that if he died, the Six Desires sect would completely decline. A life immortal realm cultivator would face a minor heavenly tribulation every 300 years and a major heavenly tribulation every 3,000 years. A true immortal realm cultivator would face a minor heavenly tribulation every 600 years and a major heavenly tribulation every 6,000 years. In the ancient times, a minor heavenly tribulation would happen every 900 years and a major heavenly tribulation every 9,000 years. Yuan Zong's next major heavenly tribulation would happen 1,000 years later. He did not have much confidence in passing the major heavenly tribulation. He would most likely die, therefore, he must find a way out for the Six Desires sect while he was still alive. The way he was looking for was none other than Ning Fan. Yuan Zong's judgment had always been good. He could tell that Ning Fan's future was limitless and he was a person who could clearly distinguish between kindness and hatred. If someone offends Ning Fan, he would definitely take revenge. If someone shows kindness to Ning Fan will definitely return the favor. After seeing through Ning Fan's personality and knowing his special identity as a disciple of the Slaughter Palace, Yuan Zong naturally wanted to befriend Ning Fan wholeheartedly. Even if he had to tell Ning Fan the secret of the star-cold jade bed and use it to heal Ning Fan's injuries, he would not hesitate to do so. As long as he could befriend Ning Fan, Yuan Zong firmly believed that Ning Fan would probably take care of the Six Desires sect in the future for the sake of what he had done today. He bluntly said that he had a purpose in befriending Ning Fan. Ning Fan admired this honesty very much. He could faintly see that Yuan Zong's great heavenly tribulation was about to arrive. His face was filled with a deathly aura, and it seemed that he would not be able to avoid this tribulation. He scanned the Six Desires sect with his divine telekinesis. There were only 3 life immortals in the sect, and they were all at the beginning and middle stages of the human mystic realm. Thus, Ning Fan vaguely guessed that the reason why Yuan Zong lowered himself to befriend him was probably because of the Six Desires sect. Fellow Taoist, what do you think of my suggestion? Are you willing to stay in my Six Desires sect for a few days and use the chilled jade bed to recuperate? Yuan Zong stroked his white beard and asked with a smile. That's fine as well. Junior's injuries are indeed somewhat thorny. If I can obtain the assistance of the stellar cold jade bed, I will definitely be able to greatly shorten the time needed to recover. The stellar cold jade bed is a supreme treasure. Since Senior is willing to lend it to this junior to heal my injuries, this junior will owe the Six Desires sect a favor. Ning Fan did not finish his sentence. He didn't say that he owed Sky Origin sect a favor. Instead, he said that he owed the Six Desires sect a favor. This made Sky Origin sect smile in satisfaction. Yuan Zong did not care that Ning Fan owed him a favor. He only had 1,000 years left to live. Even though Ning Fan's innate talent was high, his cultivation base was still low after all. Thus, Ning Fan would not be able to help him much within these 1,000 years. However, the Six Desires sect needed Ning Fan's favor. Ning Fan was a cultivator of the Slaughter Palace. His innate talent was astonishing and his future was boundless. With him taking care of the Six Desires sect, even if Yuan Zong were to die, they could still rest in peace. With fellow Taoists' words, even if I were to die now, I would have no regrets. The stellar frost jade bed is sealed within the Immortal King Palace, and the Immortal King Palace is located within the forbidden area of the Six Desires sect's sect master. Unless one possesses the sect master's token, only void-shedding cultivators are allowed to enter. Fellow Taoist, please follow this old man. This old man will bring you into the Immortal King Hall to use the Frost Jade Bed. Yuanzong smiled and welcomed Ning Fan into the Six Desires sect. The Six Desires sect was huge and it had a lot of disciples. There were 1,000,000 of them, 200 void fragmentation realm experts and 3 life immortals. Even without the Sky Origin sect, such a force would be able to rule over a middle-level starfield. However, it was far from enough to control a superior star region. Many of the disciples were surprised to see their sect master coming out personally to welcome Ning Fan into the sect. How could ordinary disciples know who Ning Fan was and how powerful he was? They really wanted to know who exactly was the person whom their sect master personally welcomed into the sect. On that day, Ning Fan killed all the cultivators of the Jun family and the Tiny Dust Sword sect. The battle was covered up by Fei He and the other void-shedding cultivators. Other than Yuanzong, no one else knew about Ning Fan's impressive achievements. After Ning Fan joined the Slaughter Palace, the bounty of 10 billion was cancelled. Tens of years had passed and most of the cultivators in the Eastern Heaven had already forgotten about Ning Fan. In the entire Six Desires sect, other than Yuanzong, no one knew Ning Fan's identity. 3 life immortals were guarding outside the forbidden area of the Six Desires sect. As soon as they saw Yuanzong, they immediately cupped their fists and greeted him respectfully. Greetings, Sect Master. This is... The 3 life immortals turned to look at Ning Fan at the same time. Their eyes were filled with curiosity. Ning Fan slightly emitted a trace of peak mortal profound realm qi. Their expressions immediately changed, revealing a look of extreme fear. This fellow Taoist is a friend of mine. He wants to enter the Immortal King Hall to have a look. Yuanzong said with a smile. He had always been kind to the cultivators in his sect. The 3 of them wore a troubled expression. The Immortal King Hall was the forbidden area of the sect master. Only the sect master could enter. This was a dead rule of the Six Desires sect that could not be changed. The 3 of them were responsible for guarding the forbidden area of the sect master. They would never dare to let the sect master's friends enter the Immortal King Hall. Hee. Rules are dead while people are alive. All of you must bear this in mind. Remember this. Even if I die, all of you will still be able to support the Six Desires sect and survive in the Six Desires star region. Of course, principles cannot be abandoned. All of you must also bear this in mind. If you do not have principles in your heart, you will no longer be able to cultivate the Tao. However, the rules of the Immortal King Hall have nothing to do with principles. There's no harm in making an exception for once. Let him enter. Perhaps the future of our Six Desires sect lies on him. Yuanzong sighed and lectured them with a sincere tone. Since their sect master had already spoken to this extent, the 3 of them were not fools. They bowed respectfully and made way for Ning Fan. Ning Fan's gaze swept across the 3 life immortals and eventually landed on Yuanzong. His eyes were filled with surprise. The experts of this sect enforced the law impartially. Their sect master was kind and friendly. This Six Desires sect is a good sect. Yuanzong took out a formation plate and cast a magic seal on it. The formation light outside the forbidden area slowly revealed a passage. Fellow Taoist, please enter the passage to heal your injuries. I will stay outside the forbidden area and guard it for you. Don't worry, fellow Taoist. The formation light of this forbidden area will only defend against external enemies. It won't attack the cultivators inside the formation. The cultivators inside the formation can leave the forbidden area at any time without facing any obstruction. Besides, there are no dangers inside the forbidden area. The Immortal King Hall is located in the deepest part of the forbidden area. Yuanzong explained patiently as if he was afraid that Ning Fan would worry about the hidden dangers inside the forbidden area. Ning Fan nodded his head. With his cultivation base in the Tao of formations, he could naturally tell that there were no dangers inside the grand formation of this forbidden area. Even if there were dangers, he was not afraid of breaking into this forbidden area with his abilities. Even though he admired Yuan Zong, he still kept his guard up against him. The primordial spirits of the cultivators of the Jun family and the Minute Dust Sword cultivators had also been refined by Ning Fan using a secret technique. Now, he could use them to perform the Spirit Blast technique. Ning Fan gently placed his palm on the soul pouch and stepped into the passage of the formation light. If Yuan Zong really harbors ill intentions, he would only need to use the Spirit Blast technique and it would be enough to massacre the entire Six Desires planet. After Ning Fan entered the forbidden area, the passage of the formation light disappeared. Yuan Zong closed his eyes and sighed in self-reproach. He blamed himself for breaking the rules of the Six Desires sect by allowing outsiders to enter the Immortal King Hall. However, he did not regret it. For the future of the Six Desires sect, he would not hesitate to violate the rules once. Where are the elders of the Six Desires sect? Yuan Zong opened his eyes and said solemnly. We are here. The three life immortal realm cultivators replied with a clear voice. As the sect master, you allowed outsiders to enter the Immortal King Hall. What is your punishment? You have to suffer 500 strikes of the lightning whip. The three of them sighed. Carry out the punishment. Don't let the other disciples know about this. Yuan Zong sighed and closed his eyes. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back. As for the three life immortal realm cultivators, they each took out a lightning whip. They gritted their teeth and lashed Yuan Zong's body. Even though he was the sect master, the rules of the sect could not be abolished. The layout of the forbidden area was also a big circle covering a small circle, which was very similar to the cave world. There were some pavilions in the outer area. Most of them were pill concoction rooms and equipment refinement rooms. In the inner area, there was a huge silver palace. There was a plaque above the palace with 3 words written on it. Immortal King Hall. This hall was left behind by Six Desires' Immortal King. It was the place where he went into seclusion to heal his injuries. Ever since his death, the sect masters of the past generations would go into seclusion here to heal their injuries. The Immortal King Hall was very magnificent. The tiles on the walls were shining with starlight and star power was flowing. Along the way to the front of the Immortal King Hall, the natal black star in Ning Fan's body began to tremble slightly. That trembling was due to excitement. Inside this hall, there was a supreme treasure that could increase star power. Star Cold Jade. Ning Fan sighed and stepped into the Immortal King Hall. He was very clear about gratitude and grudges. If people respect me, I will respect them tenfold. Even though he knew that the Star Cold Jade in the Immortal King Hall could help to increase his star power and cultivation base, he did not plan to take away the Cold Jade bed. Yuan Zong was kind enough to lend him the Cold Jade bed to heal his injuries. If Ning Fan takes away the Cold Jade bed, his star power would improve tremendously but his Dao heart would certainly suffer a great loss. As soon as he stepped into the Immortal King Hall, Ning Fan scanned the surroundings. There were no unnecessary decorations in the Immortal King Hall. Each of the 4 corners of the hall had an everlasting lantern. At the center of the hall, there was a huge Cold Jade bed which was 3 zhang in length and 1 zhang in width. It was emitting dense cold qi. On top of the Cold Jade bed, vast and snow-white star power was flowing gently. Any cultivator only needed to lie down on this bed and they would be able to heal themselves. This bed was refined from a whole piece of Star Cold Jade. Such a huge piece of Cold Jade would probably be hard to find even for cultivators at the Eternal Ancient Realm. Ning Fan estimated that if he devours all the star power in this Cold Jade bed, he would have at least 5,000 natal stars. 5,000 natal stars were not a small number. Ning Fan cultivated the Cold Star secret record which allowed him to devour the Yin Qi in the land of extreme Yin to condense his natal stars. On every cultivation planet, there would more or less be some regions which belonged to the land of extreme Yin. During the 8 years when Ning Fan and Ouyang Nguan were escaping from their pursuers and headed to the Slaughter Palace, they had once passed by a low-grade cultivation planet which had extremely dense Yin Qi. They hid on that planet for half a month. After spending half a month, he had absorbed all the Yin Qi in an entire low-grade cultivation planet, but he only managed to condense one natal star. Seeing how difficult it was to cultivate natal stars, he had no choice but to temporarily give up on cultivating the star technique. A single star cold jade bed could help Ning Fan condense 5,000 natal stars, which could save him more than 200 years of arduous cultivation. If it wasn't for the fact that Yuan Zong was his friend and not his enemy, Ning Fan would certainly snatch the cold jade bed to cultivate the star technique. What a pity, when I do things, I don't care about good or evil, merits or demerits. All I want is to have a clear conscience. If I am ungrateful today and snatch this bed away, I will definitely regret it in the future. With a sigh, Ning Fan turned around and sat on the star-cold jade bed. He consumed a 9-revolution pill and activated the black star technique. Borrowing the star power of the star-cold jade bed, he circulated his magic power step by step and began to heal his injuries. 2 types of starlight, one black and one white, intertwined with each other on Ning Fan's body. Indistinctly, there was a kind of natural Tao aura that was compatible with Ning Fan's Tao. The black starlight was the black star technique. For the sake of the black star technique, he had the thought of snatching the treasure away. The white starlight was the starlight of the jade bed. In order to repay his kindness, he gave up the thought of snatching the treasure away. The process of life and death was the process of the struggle between the Tao and the devil. The black and white starlight seemed to be the interpretation of Ning Fan's Tao. In the end, he abandoned the devil and guarded the Tao without losing his Tao heart. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. In the blink of an eye, 1 month had passed. Ning Fan had already consumed the second 9-revolution pill. His injuries had also recovered by 60%. Another month passed by and Ning Fan's injuries were finally fully healed. Ning Fan forcefully activated the heaven sealing technique to fix old monster Qian Yan in place. The injuries he suffered from the backlash were extremely terrifying. If it wasn't for the cold jade bed, Ning Fan would have to enter seclusion in the profound Yin world for a few years to fully recover. With the help of the cold jade bed, Ning Fan only spent 2 months in the outside world to fully recover. This speed was really shocking. While marveling at the powerful healing power of the cold jade bed, Ning Fan's eyes were filled with admiration but not greed. Sensing the black and white starlight that was revolving around his body, Ning Fan's eyes were filled with a kind of natural Tao charm. After a while, he raised his hand, trying to merge the 2 starlight into one. His palm seemed to be holding the great Tao. Under the influence of the great Tao, the 2 different types of star power actually showed signs of merging. Just by merging a trace of the black star technique, the healing power of the black star technique instantly increased by a few times. However, before the black and white starlight completely merged, Ning Fan suddenly felt a pain in his chest and coughed out a mouthful of blood. The 2 types of starlight that had just shown signs of merging separated from each other and dispersed. I can't merge them, but this is an unexpected surprise. Ning Fan casually wiped off the blood stains at the corner of his mouth and smiled with satisfaction. Just now, he seemed to have almost created a starlight healing technique that was even more powerful than the black star technique, 1 black and 1 white, 1 evil and 1 evil. That was Ning Fan's own starlight technique. It was an star technique that was even more powerful than the black star technique. In the eyes of the world, the Heaven Emperor was an expert who had cultivated his star technique to the extreme. His black star technique was the best in the world and could be considered as the #1 star technique. However, Ning Fan understood that there was no such thing as the strongest or the #1 in the world forever. The black star technique was just temporarily unsurpassed. Perhaps one day, Ning Fan would be able to create an star technique that would surpass the black star technique. Unfortunately, the level of the black star technique was too high. Currently, Ning Fan's cultivation realm was far lower than the Heaven Emperor's in the past. If I want to create an star technique that is stronger than the black star technique, I will at least need to reach the immortal Emperor realm. Ning Fan muttered to himself. After clearing all the distracting thoughts, Ning Fan spent another day on the cold jade bed to heal all the injuries caused by the backlash of the star technique. When his injuries were fully healed, he stood up and was about to leave the bed. Suddenly, he frowned and looked at the cold jade bed with puzzlement. Sitting back on the cold jade bed, Ning Fan calmed his mind and closed his eyes, as if he was sensing something. He did not heal his injuries nor did he do anything else. After a long time, he opened his eyes. His eyes revealed a strange expression and he muttered to himself. Luckily, I did not let my greed take control of me and take away the power of the stars in this cold jade bed. I didn't expect this cold jade bed to have such a great use. If I destroy this bed because of my greed, I will certainly miss a great opportunity. Is this the opportunity left behind by 6 Desires Immortal King? Cultivators who don't possess the bone of 6 desires would never know that such an opportunity is hidden under this bed. Before I entered the Immortal King Palace, my natal black star could not help but reveal its excitement. At that time, I just thought that the natal black star was excited because of the cold jade bed. So this is the truth. Senior 6 Desires, you have really given this junior a great opportunity. Under the cold jade bed, there was an ancient grand formation hidden 1,000,000 zhang underground. That grand formation was set up by 6 Desires Immortal King himself using the power of desire. Cultivators who don't possess the bone of 6 desires would never be able to sense that there was actually a grand formation of desire hidden in this place. The formation eye of the grand formation was located in the crust of the 6 Desires star. There were 2 conditions for the grand formation to be activated. Firstly, the person who activated the formation must possess the bone of 6 desires. Secondly, the cold jade bed was not destroyed. It was a grand formation that could absorb the power of the stars. It could directly absorb the power of all the cultivation planets in the entire 6 Desires star region to help the person who activated the formation condense his natal star. Compared to the cold star secret record, this method of cultivating star techniques was much faster and more domineering. Since Ning Fan possessed the bone of 6 desires and he did not destroy the cold jade bed, it was enough for him to activate this grand formation. If he activates this formation, his star technique cultivation base would certainly skyrocket. I won't snatch the cold jade bed nor will I take it. However, I will activate this grand formation. Cultivators of the bone of desire are extremely rare. If I don't take this opportunity today, there won't be a second bone of desire cultivator who will enter the Immortal King Palace and take this opportunity. This opportunity will naturally be wasted. It's such a pity. Ning Fan was not a pretentious person. This formation was his opportunity. Cultivators who don't possess the bone of desire would not be able to obtain it. There was no need for him to give it to the cultivators of the 6 Desires sect. If he doesn't take it, no one else would take it. Why should he waste such a precious treasure? Each of the bone of desire in his body emitted a faint fluorescent light. Ning Fan sat cross-legged on the cold jade bed. His fingers danced in the air as he performed the formation hand seals to activate the grand formation. An invisible force of desire formation spread across the entire 6 Desires star region in an instant with the 6 Desires star as the center. The 74,000 cultivation planets in the 6 Desires star region were all enveloped by the formation force. However, no one noticed it. As the grand formation rotated for the 6th time, a wave of ancient desire chi force suddenly enveloped Ning Fan's body and spread across the entire 6 Desires star region. This ancient desire chi force was not concealed at all. At this moment, all the cultivators in the entire 6 Desires star region raised their heads in disbelief. The expressions of each of the legendary old monsters changed greatly. One after another, they flew out of their cultivation planets and stared at the vast and empty starry sky in disbelief. Their eyes were filled with fear and respect. The aura force of the 4th tribulation of eternity. An immortal king who has undergone the 4th tribulation of eternity has entered the 6 Desires star region and spread his aura force across the entire star region. Why would such a supreme expert come to our 6 Desires star region? Could it be that he's here to search for the cave world whose entrance had disappeared a few months ago? The expressions of the cultivators in the entire Six Desires star changed greatly. They stared at the starry sky in disbelief. They had also sensed the aura force of the fourth tribulation immortal king. Besides, they could feel that the immortal king seemed to be very close to them. He was just within the territory of the Six Desires star. Has a peerless immortal king sneaked into our Six Desires star? Where is that peerless immortal king now? Some of the cultivators asked in shock. How can you say that? Does a dignified immortal king still need to hide his identity and enter the Six Desires star? He's such an earth-shattering figure. He can come and go as he pleases. Why would he need to hide? The reason why we can't sense his presence is because our cultivation levels are too weak. It's not because that senior is hiding on purpose. At this moment, the entire Six Desires star region was in an uproar. At this moment, Yuan Zong and the three law enforcement life immortals outside the forbidden area of the sect master of the Six Desires sect looked in the direction of the forbidden area in disbelief. They were the closest to the forbidden area, so only they could sense that the Celestial King's aura had spread from the forbidden area to the entire Six Desires starfield. Could it be that a peerless Celestial King has snuck into our Six Desires sect's forbidden area, the Celestial King Palace? The expressions of the three law enforcement life immortals changed drastically. No, it's not. This aura is emitted by the founder of the Six Desires sect, the Six Desires Celestial King. Origin Zong calmed himself down and said solemnly. Sect leader. This was impossible. Didn't the first ancestor fall countless years ago? How can he still release such a powerful aura after his death? The three life immortals said in disbelief. You don't know. Before the progenitor perished, he had left behind a fortuitous opportunity on planet Six Desires. He had also left behind a final order. If someone in the future obtained this fortuitous opportunity, they would definitely trigger a phenomenon that would allow the last strand of aura he left on planet Six Desires to reappear in the galaxy. On that day, the descendants of the Six Desires sect would be able to worship this person as their master, and they would be able to make the Six Desires sect flourish in the eastern sky. This is the top secret of our sect. Only the past sect masters know about it. Yuan Zong was silent. He remembered what the previous sect master had told him in earnest. When the Six Desires Celestial King died, he knew that there were no heroes among the younger generation, and he predicted that the Six Desires sect would eventually decline. Thus, he used up all of his life's savings to leave behind a great opportunity for a fated person to obtain. He also told his descendants to rely on this fated person and make the Six Desires sect prosper. This desire formation could only be used once. This was a grand formation that Six Desires Celestial King had left behind after exhausting his life savings. From Six Desires Immortal King's point of view, those who could obtain fortuitous encounters were all cultivators of the Bone of Desire. If he was a Bone Desire cultivator, he would naturally have the ability to revitalize the Six Desires sect. Unknowingly, there was a great fortune left behind by Six Desires Immortal King, and the one who obtained this fortune was Ning Fan. Yuan Zong looked in the direction of the forbidden area, his eyes struggling, as though he was making a decision. A long time later, his gaze turned resolute. He knew that the person who triggered the immortal King Qi was Ning Fan. Thus, he decided to obey the ancestral order and lead the entire Six Desires sect to serve Ning Fan as their master. Not befriending him, but treating him as his master. The ancestral decree could not be defied. The immortal King Qi swept across the starry sky, turning into gigantic invisible palms that grabbed at each of the cultivation planets. Other than the Six Desires star, the star power of each of the cultivation planets was forcefully extracted. Their star power was severely depleted. The star power that was extracted continuously flowed into Ning Fan's body through the Desire Grand Formation that covered the entire star region. His natal stars were condensed at an astonishing speed. The star power of 74,000 cultivation planets allowed Ning Fan to condense 74,000 natal stars. The number of natal black stars was 83,000. Currently, the self-healing ability of the Black Star technique allowed him to instantly recover from his injuries even if he withstood a strike from a peak Ghost Profound Realm cultivator. This formation is so strong. Ning Fan inspected his body. When he sensed the number of natal stars in his body, he was astonished. What kind of grand formation could allow him to condense 74,000 natal stars in just the time it takes for an incense stick to burn? He must get his hands on the diagram of this formation. This is a supreme grand formation. Chapter 760. The desire formation beneath the 6 desires planet's crust was slowly disappearing. Although this formation was powerful, it could only be used once. Once it was used, it would disappear. Ning Fan scanned the formation with his spirit sense. Even with his current cultivation base in the Tao of formations, he actually could not see through the mysteries of the formation eye at all. It was not surprising. How could Ning Fan see through a grand formation that could instantly absorb the power of 74,000 cultivation stars? Seeing that the grand formation was disappearing bit by bit, Ning Fan's eyes flashed with determination. He took out a recording jade slip and engraved the full image of the grand formation into it. Since he could not understand the structure of the formation, he decided to imprint the layout of the formation and slowly study it. One day, Ning Fan would be able to see through the mysteries of this formation. Of course, it would be even better if Ning Fan could directly find the completed formation diagram in the 6 Desires sect. As for the stellar cold jade bed, Ning Fan got off the bed and looked at the cold jade bed in front of him with a frown. There were 2 conditions to activate this formation. One was to have the 6 Desires bone, and the second was to have the stellar chilling jade bed. If he obtains the formation diagram in the future and sets up a grand formation without such a huge stellar cold jade bed, it would be troublesome. He had to get his hands on this bed. There weren't many starry cold jade beds in the entire eastern sky. If one missed this bed, it would be hard to find a second one. Naturally, he could not snatch the bed. No matter what, he was indebted to Yuan Zong. Even if he wanted this bed, he would have to go through the proper channels and barter for it. He still had 810 billion Tao crystals on him and a lot of heaven and earth treasures. It should be enough to buy this bed. If Yuan Zong really refused to sell it to him, there was nothing he could do about it. After all, he couldn't just rob him by force, right? In that case, he would not buy it. He would just borrow the bed. Once he obtained the formation diagram and enough materials to set up the formation, he would borrow this bed for a while and return it to the 6 Desires sect when he was done. If it was just a temporary loan, Sky Origin sect wouldn't reject him if he paid enough. With this thought in mind, Ning Fan walked out of the forbidden area step by step. Just as he walked out of the forbidden area, he saw many people gathered outside the forbidden area. Yuan Zong stood in front of everyone. Behind him were 3 law enforcers. Behind the 3 law enforcement life immortals stood another 200 void fragmentation realm experts. After the 200 void fragmentation realm cultivators, there were still 3,000 origin returning great void stage cultivators. The moment Ning Fan walked out of the forbidden area, Yuan Zong's expression remained unchanged. He suddenly cupped his fists and half knelt on the ground, bowing to Ning Fan. Subordinate Yuan Zong greets Master. As Yuan Zong bowed to Ning Fan, all the experts behind him knelt on the ground one after another and kowtowed to Ning Fan. All of them uttered the same sentence. Greetings, Master. Master. Ning Fan was startled. He did not know when he had become the leader of the group of cultivators in the 6 Desires sect and how he could make Yuan Zong, who was a true immortal realm cultivator, kneel and bow to him. However, with Ning Fan's intelligence, he could vaguely guess that the abnormal behavior of Yuan Zong and the others might be related to his action of activating the 6 Desires grand formation. Senior, what do you mean by this? Ning Fan asked indifferently. Master, don't flatter me. How can I be worthy of being addressed as a senior? Yuan Zong smiled bitterly. Forget it, all of you, get up. First, tell me, why did you call me master? Yes. As soon as they heard Ning Fan's order, the cultivators of the Origin sect and the 6 Desires sect immediately rose to their feet respectfully. Each of them lowered their heads, not daring to look Ning Fan in the eye. Yuanzong also lowered his head respectfully and told Ning Fan about the last order left behind by Six Desires' immortal king. His expression was extremely respectful, as if the Ning Fan in front of him was not a mortal profound realm cultivator but a senior at the eternal ancient realm. After hearing Yuanzong's words, Ning Fan's eyes flickered and he remained silent for a long time. Who would have thought that once he activated the formation left behind by Six Desires' immortal king, the Six Desires sect's cultivators would acknowledge him as their master? Ning Fan believed 70% of his words and held back 30% of it. He believed the words of the origin sect. He believed that if he activated the formation, he would be worshipped by the cultivators of Six Desires sect as their master. However, he did not believe that all the cultivators of Six Desires sect would sincerely worship him as their master. After all, his cultivation was only at the peak of the human profound realm. He didn't have the strength to make the Duzhen faction willingly serve him as their master. What he didn't trust was the human heart. Seeing that Ning Fan's eyes were still filled with doubt, Yuanzong sighed and said, "Does Master not believe in our sincerity?" "Yes." Ning Fan answered straightforwardly. "If an unfamiliar true immortal realm cultivator suddenly said that he wanted to submit to you, would you trust him without any reservation?" "Master, you can plant a mental seal on us. We will never resist." Yuanzong cupped his fists and said resolutely. He really wanted to lead the entire Six Desires sect to submit to Ning Fan and serve him as their master. They would live and die together with Ning Fan. He believed that the last words of their ancestor would not be wrong. If their ancestor ordered them to submit to him, they would willingly submit to him. Ning Fan fell into silence again, weighing the pros and cons. When he suddenly heard that all the cultivators of the Six Desires sect wanted to submit to him, he had to carefully weigh the pros and cons. If he agreed to the request of the Six Desires sect, he could plant a mental seal on them and obtain a true immortal realm subordinate for free. Other than Yuanzong, there was no one else in the entire Six Desires sect who could enter Ning Fan's eyes. To the current Ning Fan, having an early Duzhen realm subordinate was still a great benefit. Moreover, if the Six Desires sect submitted to him, he could legitimately take away the star-cold jade bed, which would save him a lot of trouble. However, if he agrees to the request of the Six Desires sect, he would also bring some trouble to himself. If he really agrees to the request of the Six Desires sect, he would treat them as his own people. He would also do his best to deal with the troubles that the Six Desires sect was facing now. According to what Ning Fan knew, the Six Desires sect was still in charge of the Six Desires star region in name. However, in reality, the territory that truly belonged to them was less than 1/10 of the entire star region. Other than the Six Desires sect, there were 3 other major forces in the Six Desires star region. Each of them had Duzhen as their leader. The 3 major forces had always been on the same side. They shared both honor and disgrace. When they joined forces, they steadily suppressed the Six Desires sect and divided 90% of the territory of the star region. According to rumors, the Six Desires sect often had conflicts with the 3 true immortal realm forces. If Ning Fan becomes the master of the Six Desires sect, he would naturally need to stand up for the sect when the 3 major forces provoke him in the future. He was not a person who would take money without doing anything. As the master of another force, he must protect his subordinates. This was the most basic morality. After pondering for a long time, Ning Fan made a decision. The advantages of subduing the Six Desires sect outweigh the disadvantages. I can subdue them. Are all of you really willing to let me plant a mental restriction on you? Ning Fan had already changed the way he addressed them. His tone was also more dignified. Yes. Yuanzong and the other cultivators answered. Good. If that's the case, I will accept this Six Desires sect. From today onwards, I, Ning Fan, am the master of the Six Desires sect. As soon as he finished speaking, Ning Fan suddenly spread out his spirit sense and scanned the sea of consciousness of Yuanzong and the others. Then, he planted a mental restriction on each of their sea of consciousness. None of them resisted. Instead, they just endured it silently. No one could blame Ning Fan for judging others with the heart of a vile person. He had always been a vile person first before being a gentleman. Yuan Zong and the others did not show any dissatisfaction. The cultivation world was originally full of deceit and deception. If their master was a person who trusted others easily, they would be worried that they had recognized the wrong master. In fact, Ning Fan had underestimated his position in Yuan Zong's heart. In Yuan Zong's heart, Ning Fan would become an immortal venerate or even an immortal king one day. As for him, he was just a mediocre cultivator who was about to die at the early crossing truth realm. He did not feel ashamed to serve Ning Fan as his master. He firmly believed that Ning Fan would one day become one of the supreme beings in the Eastern Heaven. Perhaps, there would be people who would laugh at his behavior of serving Fate Immortals as his master with the cultivation base of a true immortal realm cultivator. But he firmly believed that there would be a day when others would admire his foresight and wisdom. Since Yuan Zong was not dissatisfied, the others were even less dissatisfied. The three Fate Immortals were only at the early and mid-human profound realm. Thus, they did not feel any pressure to serve Ning Fan as their master. As for the other Void Fragmentation Realm cultivators and Origin Returning Great Void Realm cultivators, they did not feel any dissatisfaction at all. Ning Fan did not plant a mental restriction on all of the 100,000 disciples. It was unnecessary. All the higher-ups of the sect had been planted with a mental restriction. All of them were under Ning Fan's control. The remaining disciples were not worth mentioning. It was only after he planted the mental restriction that Ning Fan truly felt like he had the entire Six Desires sect under his control. That feeling was not bad at all. When Ning Fan looked at Yuan Zong again, his eyes were filled with friendliness. He patted his storage pouch and took out a 9,000 years old immortal peach and gave it to Yuan Zong. This is for you. If you consume it, it can delay the great heavenly tribulation for 9,000 years. Ning Fan had long noticed that Yuan Zong's great heavenly tribulation was approaching and he was destined to die. The reason why he did not give Yuan Zong the 9,000 years old immortal peach was because even though he admired Yuan Zong, it was impossible for him to give such a precious item to an outsider easily. He was not that kind of person. Today, he was willing to give Yuan Zong this item. After all, Yuan Zong was already one of his people. Ning Fan was never stingy towards his own people. This is a 9,000 years old immortal peach. This item can delay the great heavenly tribulation of the eternal ancient realm for 9,000 years. A 3,000 years old immortal peach could be eaten by life immortals, but it was useless for true immortals. A 6,000 years old immortal peach could be eaten by life immortals and true immortals, but it was useless for eternal immortals. A 9,000 years old immortal peach could be eaten by second-step immortal cultivators. Each of the three types of immortal peaches had a special characteristic. There would not be any problem when eating the first immortal peach of the same grade. When eating the second immortal peach, the effect would be halved. When eating the third immortal peach, the effect would be halved again. The 3,000 years old immortal peach was no longer effective for Yuan Zong. A 6,000 years old immortal peach was worth 5 billion Dao crystals each. He had already eaten 7 of them. The effect of the 8th one was almost negligible. Thus, he did not plan to waste his money. A 9,000 years old immortal peach was a priceless treasure. It was rarely sold in the market. Occasionally, it would be sold for hundreds of billions of Dao crystals. Yuan Zong's cultivation base was too weak. He was not qualified to buy a 9,000 years old immortal peach and he could not afford it at all. Today, Ning Fan actually bestowed such a precious item to him without any hesitation. How could he not be grateful to him? Even though he was indifferent to life and death, it did not mean that he did not want to continue living. After eating this immortal peach, his heavenly tribulations could be delayed by 9,000 years. With these 9,000 years, he would have a great chance of surviving the next great heavenly tribulation. Even if he could not survive the next great heavenly tribulation in the end, he could still live for another 9,000 years. Thank you for your generous gift, Master. Yuanzong kept the 9,000 years old immortal peach with trembling hands. Then, he cupped his fists at Ning Fan and bowed solemnly. At this moment, he was even more convinced that he did not choose the wrong master. This master treats his subordinates very well. It will not be wrong to follow him. Ning Fan simply nodded his head in response to Yuanzong's words of gratitude. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Don't spread the fact that I've become the master of 6 desires." Yes. This subordinate will issue a gag order right now. Yuanzong was stunned for a moment. Then, he understood Ning Fan's intention and gave a stern order to the group of cultivators behind him. The low-grade disciples outside did not know that Ning Fan had already become the master of the 6 desires. As for the higher-ups of the 6 desires sect, they had been planted with mental seals by Ning Fan. Naturally, they would follow Ning Fan wholeheartedly and would not reveal any of his secrets. Not long after, Yuanzong finished giving the order to keep quiet. Ning Fan nodded his head in satisfaction. He dismissed everyone except Yuanzong and said indifferently, "I want to take away the stellar cold jade bed. Master is the master of 6 desires. This item naturally belongs to Master." Sky Origin replied respectfully. "Do you know that there is a grand formation set up on the 6 desires star?" Ning Fan nodded his head in satisfaction and continued to ask. "Great formation?" This subordinate does not know what kind of grand formation is set up on 6 desires star. "Do you need me to go and investigate?" "There's no need. Have you seen this formation before?" Ning Fan took out the recording jade slip of the 6 desires grand formation and passed it to Yuanzong. Yuanzong took the jade scroll and looked at the formation. He was shocked at the level of the formation and shook his head. This subordinate doesn't recognize this formation. Where are most of the sex array diagrams? Replying to Master, the sex array diagrams are all stored in the scripture pavilion. Is that so? Bring me to the scripture pavilion. Yes. Yuanzong personally led the way and brought Ning Fan to the scripture depository of the 6 desires sect. Along the way, many low-level disciples were shocked. The scripture pavilion was an important place in the 6 desires sect. In the past, only the sect master had the right to enter. Ning Fan was not a member of the 6 desires sect nor was he the sect master of the sect. However, he was able to enter the scripture depository. It really surprised them. What surprised them even more was the humble and respectful expression on the sect master's face. Previously, Yuanzong had also personally led the way for Ning Fan to enter the 6 desires sect. At that time, he treated Ning Fan in a friendly and courteous manner, but he was never humble. At this moment, Yuanzong's attitude towards Ning Fan was like how a subordinate would treat his master. Each of the disciples of the 6 desires sect was astonished. It was hard for them to imagine what kind of cultivation base Ning Fan had and what kind of background did he have to make their true immortal sect show a humble attitude towards him. Ning Fan stayed in the scripture depository for 3 days. 3 days later, he walked out of the scripture depository. His eyes were filled with disappointment. There was no formation diagram of the 6 desires grand formation in the 6 desires sect. If that was the case, he could only rely on himself to comprehend it from the remnant images in order to obtain the complete formation diagram. Yuanzong passed the formation disc of the sect master's forbidden area to Ning Fan. Then, he temporarily left the 6 desires planet to complete the mission that Ning Fan gave him. Ning Fan gave him a mission. He asked him to use 800 billion Tao crystals to buy spiritual herbs that were 1 million years old in the entire 6 desires star region. He would buy as many as he could. The purpose of buying million-years-old spiritual herbs was naturally to cultivate the 3 flowers at one's prominence. Ning Fan did not spend the 6 desires sect's money to buy the herbs. How should he put it? The 6 desires sect was too poor. They only had less than 50 billion Tao crystals. To Ning Fan, it was too little. This amount of Tao crystals was definitely not enough for all the cultivators in the sect to cultivate. The 6 desires sect was getting weaker and weaker with each generation. Other than the star-cold jade bed and Yuan Zong, who was a cheap fighter, Ning Fan did not fancy anything else. The Six Desires sect did not worship the golden body of their ancestor, nor did they have any incense inheritance. At first, Ning Fan wanted to borrow the incense power left by the Six Desires' immortal king, but he was disappointed. Occasionally, the sect master of the Six Desires sect would have some incense power left by them. However, the amount of incense power left by them was too little. It was not even 1/10,000th of the incense power of the Yao clan. The descendants of the Six Desires sect were getting weaker and weaker with each generation. They did not have any outstanding talents. Naturally, there were not many people who respected them, and it was hard for them to collect the incense power. Unlike the ancestor of the Yao clan who injured an immortal emperor with his empty cultivation base, his name shook the eastern heaven. Countless people respected him and worshipped him. During the time when Yuan Zong went out to buy the herbs, Ning Fan returned to the immortal king palace and kept the star-cold jade bed into the profound Yin world. With a sway of his body, he also entered the profound Yin world to cultivate. Since Yao Qingyun had already left, the matters of the Six Desires sect had come to an end for the time being. It was time for him to properly organize the many spoils of war that he had obtained in the immortal cave world. The 4/5 Nirvana immortal swords of old ancestor Wei Chen possessed boundless power. However, Ning Fan did not attach much importance to them. He kept them into his sword pouch and gave them to the 5 little sword spirits to comprehend. To the 5 little sword spirits, the power of these 4 immortal swords was unfathomable. If they carefully comprehend the sword intent within the swords, their cultivation bases would improve significantly. These 5 little girls were not simple. They could see the huge blood-red sword in the 7th floor of the blood prison. If they are nurtured well, they might come in handy in the future. After obtaining 4/5 Nirvana immortal swords for free, the 5 little girls were naturally overjoyed. They flattered Ning Fan for a long time in a sweet voice. Then, the 5 monkeys and 4 peaches fought each other for the 4 immortal swords. In the end, Jingjing, Mo, Shui, and Hua each managed to snatch an immortal sword to comprehend. The little stutterer Tong was too slow. She did not manage to snatch the sword and started crying non-stop. Ning Fans had just finished testing the power of the separate and gather sword. Seeing the little girl crying pitifully, he simply put the separate and gather sword into the sword pouch and gave it to the little stutterer to play with. The immortal treasures of true immortals were all acquired immortal treasures, and were divided into 12 nirvanic levels. The first nirvanic level was the lowest, and was usually used by early truth-crossing stage cultivators. The 12th nirvanic level was the highest, and was usually used by peak thought-shattering cultivators. The 4-minute swords were 5th nirvana immortal swords, and they were void-shedding elementary magic treasures. Naturally, they weren't as powerful as the gather separation sword. Tong obtained the best sword and smiled through her tears. The other 4 girls came over enviously to fawn over Tong, wanting to share this peerless sword with her. Ning Fan found it funny to see the 5 little girls playing around in the sword pouch. He had tried the separate and gather sword. This sword was very strong, very strong. It had almost reached the innate realm. Not even peak thought demolishers could unleash the full power of the sword. That day, eccentric Thousand Eyes, who was at the peak of the thought shatterer realm, had used this sword to unleash a slash. In the blink of an eye, his health bar had been drained, and he had almost died from the backlash. This sword wasn't something that the current Ning Fans could use. If he had to use it, he would only be able to unleash 1/1000th of the sword's power even if he exhausted most of his blood essence. Ning Fan had also tried the power of the blue burning fan. He could only unleash 1/1000th of the treasure's power after exhausting all of his magic power. 1/1000th of the treasure's power was roughly equivalent to the power of the heaven-holding seal. However, the amount of magic power consumed was twice of that of the heaven-holding seal. In terms of power, it was obviously more cost-effective to use the heaven-holding seal in battle. However, the flame that the blue burning fan fanned was corpse fire. Corpse fire was extremely poisonous. From this point of view, the blue burning fan still had many magical uses. After testing the power of the blue burning fan, Ning Fan took out the desire-easing pearl. Holding the pearl in his hand, Ning Fan's eyes were unprecedentedly solemn. He did not care about the ability of this treasure to restrain desire. He had the bone of desire in his body. The desire-easing pearl was purely unnecessary. Since this treasure was useless to him, it was better to devour it. The desire-easing pearl was refined by 6 desires immortal king with a single glance. If he refines it, he would surely gain a lot of benefits. Refine. Ning Fan sat cross-legged in the profound Yin world, holding the desire-easing pearl in his hand. He circulated his magic power and began to refine the power of desire contained in the pearl bit by bit. 1 day. 2 days. 3 days, 1 month had passed. The power of desire contained in the bone of desire in Ning Fan's body had nearly doubled. As for his eyes, they were currently glowing with golden light. There are no more updates. Let's wash up and sleep. Chapter 761. Withdrawing the golden light from his eyes, Ning Fan looked at the desire-severing pearl that had already turned into ashes and smiled with satisfaction. I can't believe that just refining the eye of the 6 desires could actually raise the level of my eyes to the acquired eye. The Dharma eye was a great ability that was divided into 2 levels, acquired and innate. Normally, even true immortals would rarely cultivate the acquired Dharma eye. As for the innate Dharma eye, it was rare for even eternal ancient realm cultivators to cultivate it. Ning Fan's left eye could display the Fu Li eye technique's illusory and see-through abilities, while his right eye could display the Devil Luo eye to secretly learn other people's body techniques and devil martial arts. The power of these 2 eye techniques would greatly increase along with the completion of the acquired eye. The stronger one's eyesight, the more powerful the eye technique would be. After cultivating the acquired eye, Ning Fan's strength would naturally increase tremendously. Moreover, after attaining the acquired Dharma eye, he could begin to cultivate another secret technique. Chaotic World Glow Technique. Ning Fan's yin-yang transformation cultivation method had already reached the 2nd level of the 4th level. After refining the eye of the 6 desires, the power of his desire had greatly increased. His cultivation method advanced once again to the 3rd level of the 4th level. After attaining the 4th level, Ning Fan could cultivate another ability other than the yin plucking finger and the yin imprisoning rope. This ability was called Chaotic World Glow. Once the light swept across, none of the women would be able to escape. Those who could not defend against the light would be sucked into it. There were several prerequisites to cultivate this ability. Firstly, the cultivator must cultivate the acquired eye. Secondly, the cultivator must refine a strong power of desire. Thirdly, the cultivator must have a strong demon blood. Fourthly, the cultivator must use the power of desire and demon blood to refine his eyes and cultivate the yin-yang demon eyes. The yin-yang demon eyes could produce the chaotic world glow. The specific color of the chaotic world glow was related to the type of demon blood of the cultivator. Ning Fan possessed the bone of the 6 desires. His power of desire was strong enough. He possessed the ancestral blood of the Fu Li tribe, and his demon blood was also strong enough. Now that he had cultivated the acquired eye, he already had the qualifications to cultivate the yin-yang demon eyes. If he could cultivate the yin-yang demon eyes, he could produce the chaotic world glow and sweep all the female cultivators away. With a thought, Ning Fan's eyes glowed with golden light again. Then, he transferred the power of desire to his eyes to refine them. The pain of the refinement was like being burned by fire, but Ning Fan remained unmoved. After a month, the golden eye had been tempered by the power of desire, and it had become sharper and sharper. The light in the golden eye had gradually changed. The gold in his left eye was brighter, while the gold in his right eye was darker. After withdrawing the power of desire, Ning Fan summoned the Fu Li demon blood and used it to wash his eyes. This time, Ning Fan had gone through 3 months of pain. The light in his eyes was completely different from before. The light in his left eye had turned from bright gold to purple. The light in his right eye had already turned from dark gold to black. 1 purple and 1 black, one yang and one yin. At this point, Ning Fan's yin-yang demon eyes could be considered as having achieved the initial stage of cultivation. Traces of dark purple light flowed in Ning Fan's eyes. Ning Fan sat down with his legs crossed and cultivated diligently. The amount of multicolored light increased and the magic technique gradually took shape. Another 3 months passed and Ning Fan had completely mastered the chaotic world glow. With a thought, the yin-yang demon eyes appeared, and a purple and black light would be emitted from his eyes. He withdrew his thoughts, and the yin-yang demon eyes dispersed. The light in his eyes disappeared, and he returned to normal. In just 7 months, Ning Fan had successfully mastered the chaotic world glow. If ancient chaos were to be reborn and see this scene, he would certainly be impressed. At this moment, Ning Fan suddenly stood up. With a thought, the yin-yang demon eyes appeared. As he waved his hand, the dark purple light swept across the vast sky. It carried an extremely powerful yin-subduing power. According to Ning Fan's estimation, with his current cultivation base, even an ordinary female cultivator would not be able to withstand this technique after displaying the chaotic world glow's great ability. This multicolored light is mainly purple while the black light is supplementary. It should be called the chaotic world glow. After withdrawing the multicolored light and dispersing the yin-yang demon eyes, Ning Fan sat down on the ground again and meditated for a long time. Inwardly, he was thinking that if he could cultivate the innate Dharma eye, the power of the chaotic world glow would probably increase greatly. After meditating for a few days, Ning Fan took out a fiery red wine gourd. It was the item that belonged to the old ancestor of the Jun family. This gourd was a 6th nirvana-acquired heavenly treasure. However, it did not have any offensive or defensive abilities. It was a supreme treasure for brewing wine. Using this treasure to brew spiritual wine would speed up the brewing process of the spiritual wine. Moreover, when the spiritual wine is placed in the gourd, the energy contained in the spiritual wine would increase bit by bit as time passes. The old ancestor of the Jun family loved wine as much as his life. He had carried this wine gourd with him for millions of years. The amount of spiritual wine contained in it was like a vast ocean. The spiritual wine was very mellow and the energy it contained was extremely terrifying. According to Ning Fan's estimation, if he drinks the entire ocean of wine, it would certainly not be a problem for him to break through to the early ghost profound realm. This wine is really good. Ning Fan suddenly stood up, pulled out the stopper of the gourd and gulped down the spiritual wine. While drinking, he frantically refined the energy within the wine. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, January, February, March, a whole year had passed. Ning Fan finally drank the entire ocean of wine and kept the wine gourd. Without the spiritual wine, this wine gourd would be useless. Ning Fan did not have the leisure to spend millions of years brewing spiritual wine. At this moment, Ning Fan's face was flushed, but his steps were steady and his eyes were still clear. After drinking the entire ocean of wine, he was still not drunk. If he didn't want to get drunk, what kind of wine could make him drunk? Ning Fan sat cross-legged on the ground. Energy accumulated in his dantian and turned into warm currents that flowed into his primordial spirit. Ning Fan's magic power had at least doubled compared to 1 year ago. He closed his eyes and sat there for a whole month. During this month, the Tao of life and death on his body were constantly changing. Born as a human and dead as a ghost. This was looking at life and death from the perspective of a human. When a human thinks that he is alive, he would naturally think that a ghost is dead. However, from the perspective of a ghost, perhaps believing that one is alive and being reincarnated as a human is dead. Ning Fan gradually understood more and more. He knew that the profound realm required an immortal cultivator to recognize the true meaning of life and death in order to achieve a breakthrough. Humans were not alive and ghosts were not dead. Life and death were two opposite concepts. Life referred to the beginning while death referred to the end. The starting point of a human and a ghost were different. Hence, their life and death were also different. Immortals were immortal. There was a beginning but there was no end. Therefore, they would never have a good ending. If an immortal died, it meant eternal death and this life would end forever. In the illusion of his mind, Ning Fan was standing on the Heart Lake, looking at his reflection in the lake. He was looking at his reflection and the reflection was also looking at him. One was real and one was real, one was fake and one was alive, or perhaps, there was no such thing as real and fake in this world. There was no such thing as life and death. Who is whose reflection? Who is alive and who is dead? You think that you are alive, but it is very possible that you are just a dead person. The place where you live is just the netherworld in the eyes of the living, the me at this moment. Am I alive or dead? Am I a human or a ghost? At this moment, Ning Fan couldn't see through his own life and death. It was as if he couldn't see the relationship between dream and reality. Is reality really reality? Dream, is it really just a dream? Perhaps the reality you see is just a dream within a dream of you. Everyone in the world thinks that they are alive and that dreams are illusions. But is the view of the world really correct? What is life and what is death? Between humans and ghosts, who is alive and who is dead? Ning Fan suddenly opened his eyes and the illusion in his mind disappeared. His gaze was unprecedentedly dazed, as if he was immersed in the great path. His actions were seeking the Tao, he was coveting the truth of the Tao. Gradually, Ning Fan's eyes regained their clarity and became even more resolute than before. He vaguely understood something. The first ring of the heavenly Tao was the ring of life and death. Nominally, this ring was for cultivators to pursue immortality, but in reality, it was for cultivators to understand that immortality was just an illusion. A life immortal who couldn't even tell whether he was alive or dead, what right did he have to think that he was immortal? Therefore, cultivators must continue to search for the truth of Tao and the truth of Tao. The second ring of the heavenly Tao was the ring of true illusions. Only those who had seen through the truth of the Tao could enter the third step of cultivation. At this moment, Ning Fan could vaguely see the path to break through to the third step by thinking about the life and death of a human and a ghost. Third step cultivators had a special title. A saint. Sage meant that one's cultivation had reached the celestial sage level. Man referred to obtaining true life, because only by truly living could one be called a man. Ascend the mountain to be an immortal, descend the mountain to be a human. This simple sentence, however, explained all the key points of cultivating to the sage realm. From the second to the third step of cultivation, one must turn all illusions into reality. Otherwise, one would not be able to become a sage. Ning Fan had already vaguely realized that his current state could only be considered as a false life. His life, death, and fate were all controlled by samsara and he could not extricate himself from it. The second ring of the heavenly Tao was like a calm lake. He sank into the lake water of the second ring like a fleeting reflection. He must jump out of the second ring of the heavenly Tao and get rid of his identity as a reflection. Only then could he truly live. He must jump out of this samsara to cultivate to the third step. At that time, his life and death would no longer be under the control of the samsara. At that time, only he could decide whether he would be a man or a ghost. Ning Fan's eyes became more and more resolute. He was no longer confused. He no longer doubted whether he was real or not, whether he was dead or alive, or whether he was just a shadow created by someone else's magic technique. That was not important. No matter whether he was a man or a ghost, real or fake, or whether he was just an illusion, he would continue to walk on this path of cultivation. At least, his obsession was real. His Tao was real. The warmth in his heart was real. That was enough. At this moment, Ning Fan suddenly understood something. He understood what immortal sovereign Zido had said during his tribulation of life and death. When he asked immortal sovereign Zido if he was dead or alive, immortal sovereign Zido only gave him an ambiguous answer. Now, he vaguely understood immortal sovereign Zido's feelings when he said those words. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with determination. His aura force suddenly rose. Whether I'm a man or a ghost, even if I'm just a wandering ghost, even if I'm just a shadow created by someone else's magic technique, even if I've never existed before, so what? So what if I'm alive or dead? No matter if I'm alive or dead, I will do what I have to do. As long as my Tao is not destroyed, my heart will never die and my body will never die. Profound Ghost Realm, break. Ning Fan shouted coldly. The bottleneck of the early Ghost Realm was forcefully broken by him without any surprise. At this moment, Ning Fan's aura force soared. He had officially broken through to the early Ghost Realm. At this moment, the strength of Ning Fan's magic power was comparable to that of a late Ghost Realm expert. At this moment, Ning Fan finally understood why after a second step cultivator dies, as long as their Tao has yet to vanish, they would have the chance to be reborn using the hands of a third step cultivator and return to their original state. The second step of longevity and eternal death were all just illusions. Only the Tao was real. The second step of Tao cultivation was as long as the Tao exists, I exist. Ning Fan also vaguely understood that the third step of Tao cultivation should be the realm of, as long as the Tao exists. In the end, cultivators would have to rise above the cycle of samsara and the great Tao step by step. From the receiver of samsara to the controller of samsara step by step. In Ning Fan's mind, he once again recalled the words of Golden Cicada during the tribulation of life and death. All forms are illusions. If you see all forms that are not real, you will see the Tathagata. He had already understood this sentence. Even though I have already become an immortal now, everything I see and hear are all illusions. I can't even tell whether I'm real or not. If I can turn all the illusions before me into reality one day, I will be qualified to become a sage and step into the third step realm. The life and death tribulation really is a great opportunity. It actually hides the path to the third step. Whether it was Golden Cicada's words or Immortal Emperor Zido's teachings, they were all guiding me to cultivate to the third step. Unfortunately, the life and death tribulation is an ancient tribulation. When ancient cultivators became immortals, they probably had to pass the life and death tribulation. Now, when cultivators become immortals, they don't have to go through this tribulation. There's no guidance to the third step. I wonder if this is the reason why no one in the 4 heavens and 9 realms has reached the third step. As for me, I've seen the path to the third step. I wonder if I'll have the chance to step into that legendary realm. Ning Fan adjusted his breathing for a month and completely stabilized his cultivation base. He also put away all the distracting thoughts in his mind. Although he saw the path to the third step, he still needed to bitterly cultivate and temper himself. Only then would he have a chance to enter the third step. After his cultivation base completely stabilized, he took out the ancient devil corpse that Yao Qingyun gave him and began to study it carefully. The essence of the ancient devil corpse's flesh and blood had long since been exhausted, so it didn't seem to have any use on the surface. However, after obtaining the cloaked corpse puppet, Ning Fan suddenly realized that the ancient devil corpse in front of him was extremely similar to the cloaked corpse puppet. That mid-thought fragmentation realm cloaked corpse puppet also had withered flesh and blood. From its appearance, ordinary people would only treat it as a useless corpse. No one would treat it as a puppet. 6 Desires Immortal King's puppet refinement technique was very different from ordinary puppet refinement techniques. His puppet looked like a useless corpse when it was placed there without being activated. It could only be controlled by using the puppet strings. Suddenly, Ning Fan thought of a possibility. Could it be that this ancient devil corpse isn't useless but has already been refined into a desire puppet by 6 Desires Immortal King? If that's the case, can I control this puppet with the puppet strings after I learn the 6 Desires puppet art? Thinking of this possibility, Ning Fan's eyes turned solemn. With his current cultivation base, even if he successfully cultivates the 6 Desires puppet art, he would still not be able to control that mid-thought fragmentation realm puppet for the time being. Without the cultivation base of Shedding Void, one could forget about controlling that puppet. Today, however, it was highly possible that Ning Fan had picked up an ancient devil puppet that was comparable to an early Shedding Void cultivator. If this ancient devil corpse was really a puppet, with Ning Fan's magic power that was comparable to a late Ghost Profound Realm cultivator, he would be able to control it in battle after mastering the 6 Desires puppet art. This meant that Ning Fan would have an early Shedding Void cultivator as his henchman. Moreover, It would be the kind that would obey his every order and would never betray him. What kind of betrayal could a corpse have? Thus, Ning Fan began to carefully inspect the ancient devil corpse to confirm whether it had been refined into a puppet or not. If it wasn't, Ning Fan would not have the ability to refine this ancient devil corpse into a desire puppet with his current cultivation base. Besides, he did not have that much time and money to waste. According to the records of the Six Desires puppet art, it would take at least hundreds or even thousands of years to refine an early shedding void puppet. Besides, the amount of heavenly materials and earthly treasures consumed would also be an astronomical figure if they were converted into Tao crystals. If this ancient devil corpse was not a finished product, Ning Fan would not have spent so much effort on it and would not have spent so much effort to refine it into a desire puppet. After a round of inspection, Ning Fan's frown gradually loosened and he revealed a satisfied smile. There were still some broken puppet lines of desire intent remaining in this ancient devil corpse. It was indeed a finished desire puppet. If Ning Fan successfully cultivates the Six Desires puppet art and condenses the puppet lines, he would be able to control this puppet to attack his enemies with his current cultivation base. At that time, he would have a shedding void cultivator by his side. Looks like it's necessary for me to cultivate the Six Desires puppet art properly. Other than the broken puppet lines in the ancient devil corpse, Ning Fan also found a broken devil talisman. Judging from the grade of the devil talisman, this ancient devil was not a supreme expert of the ancient devil clan. It was at most a mid-grade devil. The grade of the devil talisman of this ancient devil was far inferior to Ning Fan's Mo Luo ancestral talisman. Ning Fan waved his palm and summoned the Mo Luo ancestral talisman to repair the broken devil talisman in the ancient devil corpse. After repairing it, this ancient devil corpse could be considered to have a broken talisman. Its power was far from the complete devil talisman in the past, but it was still better than nothing. As for Ning Fan, he used the power of the ancestral talisman to obtain a lot of useful information from the broken talisman. For example, he obtained an ancient devil martial art of the Du Jin grade which was called the Formless Heavenly Devil Imprint. Another example was the cultivation method of the second step of the ancient devil realm and the division of cultivation realms. My current ancient devil cultivation base has already reached the peak of the revered devil realm. The next cultivation realm is the Xichen realm. Ning Fan's eyes flashed. Chapter 762. The second step of the ancient devil realm was divided into three major realms, the 8 realms of Xichen, the 12 realms of heavenly devil and the 9 realms of ancestral reversion. Ancient devils specialized in body cultivation and devil martial arts. They refined their essence into qi and had an invincible physical body. Xichen could fight against life immortal realm experts. Heavenly devils could fight against true immortal realm experts while ancestral reversion ancient devils could fight against eternal ancient realm experts. There were 8 minor realms in the Xichen realm, which corresponded to the 8 heavenly layers of the profound mortal realm and the 8 heavenly layers of the immortal body refinement realm. An ancient devil at the first heavenly layer of the Xichen realm could defeat early profound mortal realm experts with just his physical body, while an ancient devil at the 8th heavenly layer of the Xichen realm could be invincible against life immortal realm experts with just his physical body. Currently, Ning Fan had a large amount of corpse qi sealed in his body. If he could refine this corpse qi using the corpse Tao cultivation method, his body refinement cultivation base would certainly improve tremendously. His ancient devil cultivation base would also improve tremendously. After pondering for a while, Ning Fan decided to refine the corpse qi in his body and practice the 6 Desires puppet art to control the ancient devil corpse as his puppet. Ning Fan had completely given up on the corpse devil record and changed to an 8 stars corpse Tao cultivation method, heavenly corpse transformation. Ning Fan tried to break the seal on one of the corpse qi in his body and refined it using the circulation route of the heavenly corpse transformation. 10 days later, the first corpse qi was completely refined by Ning Fan. His heavenly corpse transformation cultivation method had reached the 5th level of the 2nd level. His ancient devil cultivation base naturally broke through the peak revered devil realm and advanced to the 2nd step. At this moment, the devil tribulation that descended from the heavens was shattered by Ning Fan with a single palm strike. At this moment, Ning Fan was already an ancient devil at the first heavenly layer of the Si Chen realm. With just the strength of his physical body, he could easily defeat early profound mortal realm experts. After his ancient devil cultivation base advanced to the second step, he continued to refine the second, third, and fourth corpse chi. This time, it took him 3 years to refine the corpse chi. After refining 12 corpse chi, his cultivation base advanced to the second heavenly layer of the Si Chen realm. After refining 36 corpse chi, his cultivation base advanced to the third heavenly layer of the Si Chen realm. When he refined over 100 corpse chi, his cultivation base advanced to the fourth heavenly layer of the Si Chen realm. The fourth heaven of trickling dawn corresponded to the fourth severance of the celestial physique in the body cultivation tier, and corresponded to the peak stage of the mortal profound tier in the magic power tier. With the strength of his physical body, Chen Fan could easily kill a peak profound mortal realm experts with just by raising of his palm. He had also successfully cultivated the heavenly corpse transformation to the first realm of the fourth layer. 3 years later, Ning Fan began to cultivate the 6 desires puppet art. 1 year later, Ning Fan's puppet technique reached the small success stage and he could already form the puppet lines of desire. After another 1 year and 6 months, Ning Fan successfully planted the puppet thread into the body of the ancient devil puppet. The moment Ning Fan's finger touched the puppet thread, the eyes of the ancient devil corpse which was originally dead silent suddenly flashed with ferocious light. Its aura force which was comparable to the early shedding void realm spread out to the sky. This ancient fiend was a 5th firmament sky fiend, and he could fight an early stage sky split void cultivator with just his physical strength. After staying in the profound Yin world for a few years, Ning Fan reckoned that Yuan Zong should have already bought enough 1 million years old spiritual herbs and returned to the 6 Desires sect. After keeping the ancient devil puppet into the puppet pouch hanging on his waist, Ning Fan was about to leave the profound Yin world. All of a sudden, the voice transmission jade token in his storage pouch rang. Ning Fan took out the sound transmission jade token. As soon as he heard the message from the jade token, his eyes immediately turned grim. This voice transmission came from Sky Origin Sect. The content of the message made Ning Fan's eyes flash with cold light. 3 early crossing realm experts and 2 intermediate crossing realm experts. How dare you bully my 6 Desires sect with such a small number of people? You are simply courting death. In the outside world. It had been 7 years since Ning Fan entered the profound Yin world. 1 year ago, Yuan Zong had already returned to the 6 Desires sect and spent 800 billion Dao crystals to purchase a total of 500 tufts of 1 million years old spiritual herbs. Since spiritual herbs were scarce in the 6 Desires star region, he went to the other star regions and finally bought all of them. He had been waiting for 1 year in the 6 Desires sect. As soon as Ning Fan comes out of his seclusion and walks out of the forbidden area, he would offer all of his spiritual herbs to him. Unfortunately, after waiting for 1 year, a great calamity came first before Ning Fan came out of his seclusion. The 3 great crossing realm forces of the 6 Desires star region and 2 true immortal rogue cultivators from other star regions sealed the entire 6 Desires star region. Their goal was to force the 6 Desires sect to hand over all of their 1 million years old spiritual herbs. A million years old spiritual herb that was worth 800 billion Dao crystals was enough to tempt the 3 great crossing realm forces. When the 3 great forces received the news that Yuan Zong had returned from another star region and brought back 1 million years old spiritual herbs that were worth 800 billion Dao crystals, they could no longer suppress their greed. The 3 great crossing realm forces were the Zhao clan, the Wang clan and the Zheng clan. All of them were major forces whose names shook the eastern heaven. Each of the 3 great clans had an early crossing realm old ancestor. This time, the 3 great forces invited 2 true immortal experts to help them. Both of them were at the mid-crossing realm. The 5 true immortal experts acted together and sealed the entire 6 Desires star. Not a single cultivator of the 6 Desires star could escape and leave the planet. Yuan Zong. Hand over all of your 1 million years old spiritual herbs. Otherwise, don't blame us for joining hands to annihilate the 6 Desires sect. An early crossing realm old man with a dark face stood in the starry sky and shouted in a deep voice. His voice echoed throughout the entire Six Desires star region. He was the old ancestor of the Jin clan. He was a famous figure in the Eastern Heaven who had dominated the entire Six Desires star region with his devil-controlling flag. Humph! Yuan Zong. Don't be so ungrateful. We have already given you 1 year to consider. As long as you are willing to hand over all of your spiritual herbs obediently, we will let your Six Desires sect go. However, 1 year has passed and you are still unwilling to hand over all of your spiritual herbs. Do you really think that you, a mere early crossing realm cultivator who is on the verge of death, is qualified to possess so many 1 million years old spiritual herbs? Humph, this old man thinks that you won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. You want to force us to kill you. Another one-eyed old man coldly said. His voice carried the aura of an early crossing realm cultivator and swept across the entire Six Desires star region. This person was the old ancestor of the Zhao clan. He had shaken the entire Six Desires star region with his pair of Dao soldiers. Humph! Since there is no point in talking, let us attack together and directly annihilate the Six Desires sect. Although the Six Desires sect's protective array is quite powerful, it will not be able to withstand our joint attack. A middle-aged man wearing iron armor sneered. This person was the old ancestor of the Wang clan. He had shaken the entire Six Desires star region with his powerful body-refining technique. He had even cultivated the false devil talisman. A mere Six Desires sect is not worth mentioning. Let it be annihilated. Once we annihilate the Six Desires sect, we will slaughter this planet and use the Yin souls of the cultivators of this planet to refine treasures. I believe that the power of our Dao soldiers will greatly increase. The two middle crossing realm old men sneered. These two people looked very similar. They were a pair of twin brothers. Their bodies were filled with dense Yin Qi and they were experts in ghostly joint attacks. They were known as the two elders of the heavenly ghost. When the two of them joined forces, they could even fight an old monster at the late crossing realm. After the 5 true immortals threatened, they simultaneously released their aura. The earth-shattering aura turned into endless dark clouds that enveloped the entire Six Desires star. In an instant, the entire Six Desires star trembled. The earth quaked, the mountains and rivers collapsed, and the rivers and seas flowed in reverse. On the Six Desires star, countless cultivators of the Xiu nation revealed terrified expressions. As cultivators of the Six Desires star, who didn't know that the Six Desires sect had already declined? The Six Desires sect was not a match for the Zhao clan, the Wang clan, and the Jin clan. Moreover, the 3 ancestors had invited the help of the 2 elders of the heavenly ghost. It would not be difficult for the 5 true immortals to annihilate the Six Desires sect. The reason why the 5 true immortals gave the Six Desires sect a year to consider and did not immediately attack was because they were afraid of the Six Desires sect's protective array. The protective array of the Six Desires sect was quite powerful. If they were to attack the Six Desires sect by force, even if the 5 true immortals joined forces, they would have to pay some price to break it. At first, the 5 true immortals wanted to subdue the Six Desires sect without a fight. They wanted to force Yuan Zong to hand over all the spiritual herbs so that they could save some effort. However, they never thought that Yuan Zong, who had always been tactful, would actually become so stubborn. He would rather fight against the 5 true immortals than to hand over the 1 million years old spiritual herbs. 1 year had passed. The 5 true immortals had lost all their patience. They finally decided to massacre the Six Desires sect and snatch the 1 million years old spiritual herbs. Sect Master, please consider the big picture and hand over the spiritual herbs. Protect us from the death of the Six Desires sect. 100,000 disciples knelt in the mountain gate and pleaded to the sect master's forbidden area. Outside the forbidden area, the 3,000 primordial restoration realm cultivators, 200 void fragmentation realm cultivators and 3 fate immortals of law enforcing immortal realm wore extremely ugly expressions. They understood that the reason why their sect master bought so many spiritual herbs was because of their master's order. These spiritual herbs belonged to their master. Without their master's order, it was impossible for Yuan Zong to hand them over. Yuan Zong held a green storage pouch that was filled with 1,000,000 years old spiritual herbs. He closed his eyes and remained silent. He had never thought that his carelessness in purchasing the spiritual herbs would actually lead to today's calamity. If these spiritual herbs belonged to Yuan Zong, he would not be stingy no matter how valuable they were. It was not impossible for him to spend some money to get rid of the calamity. Unfortunately, these spiritual herbs belonged to his master, Ning Fan. As his subordinate, he could not use these spiritual herbs on his own. It was even more impossible for him to give his master's spiritual herbs to others. The old ancestors of the Zhao clan, Wang clan and Zheng clan have gone too far. The two elders of the heavenly ghost have also gone too far. If my master grows up one day, he will certainly avenge the humiliation that our Six Desires sect has suffered today. Sensing the tremors of the entire Six Desires star, Yuan Zong's eyes flashed with a cold light. He took a step into the sky. Through the sect protection grand formation of the Six Desires sect, Yuan Zong looked at the scene of mountains and rivers shaking in the outside world. He looked at the 5 true immortal realm experts who stood proudly in the Six Desires Star River. There was only coldness in his eyes. These 1,000,000 years old spiritual herbs belong to my master. It's impossible for me to give them to you. If you continue to force me, I will make you pay even if I have to risk my life. Yuan Zong said coldly. What? These spiritual herbs belong to your master. Yuan Zong, do you think you can deceive us by telling such a lie? As soon as they heard Yuan Zong's words, the expressions of the 5 old monsters changed drastically. On the entire Six Desires star, everyone who heard Yuan Zong's words was astonished. Yuan Zong, who was a true immortal realm expert, actually had a master. What kind of expert would he be if he could have a true immortal realm expert as his servant? He would at least be a late true crossing realm or a peak true immortal realm old monster. If what Yuan Zong said is true, the 5 true immortals including the 2 elders of the heavenly ghost wore extremely solemn expressions. If the Six Desires sect really has such a powerful expert behind their back, they would not dare to act recklessly against them. On second thought, the Six Desires sect had always been poor. Why would they be able to fork out 800 billion Tao crystals to purchase 1,000,000 years old spiritual herbs? Yuan Zong definitely could not afford so many Tao crystals with his meager wealth. Could it be that Yuan Zong really has a master behind his back? Moreover, this master was so wealthy that he could fork out 800 billion Tao crystals to Yuan Zong for him to purchase spiritual herbs. What kind of cultivation base and what kind of background could an expert take out 800 billion Tao crystals at one time? Perhaps only a sky-rending force or a large-scale alchemy force like medicine sect or pill sect could have such a strong foundation. The 5 true immortals looked extremely fearful. Suddenly, the old ancestor of Zheng family sneered. No. This Yuan Zong must be lying. If he really has a master backing him up, why haven't we seen his master show up after besieging the Six Desires star for a year? This so-called master simply doesn't exist. He is a fictional character created by Yuan Zong. As for why Yuan Zong has so many Tao crystals to purchase 1,000,000 years old spiritual herbs, I'm afraid he has obtained a large number of Tao crystals by chance. As for what kind of chance it is, I think we will know after we take down Yuan Zong. After hearing what the old ancestor of Zheng family said, the other 4 true immortals nodded in agreement. The fear in their hearts immediately disappeared as they stared coldly at Yuan Zong. Yuan Zong. I'm going to ask you one last time. Are you going to hand over these 500 tufts of 1,000,000 years old spiritual herbs or not? The old ancestor of the Zhao family asked with a gloomy expression. I've already said that these spiritual herbs belong to my master. It's impossible for me to hand them over to you. My master is currently in seclusion in the Six Desires sect. He can't spare any time to teach you a lesson. However, if you still haven't left after my master finishes his seclusion, you will regret it in the future. Yuan Zong replied fearlessly. Perhaps, the Six Desires sect was going to be destroyed today. However, Yuanzong did not have any fear. He had already led the entire Six Desires sect to submit to Ning Fan. Everything he did was for Ning Fan's benefit. Even if the Six Desires sect is destroyed, he would never give Ning Fan's spiritual herbs to others. He deeply believed that if the 5 true immortals in front of him dared to attack the Six Desires sect today, they would certainly regret it in the future. Perhaps it would only take a few thousand years or a few hundred years for his master to grow to the true immortal realm. That day would be the day that the 5 true immortals would regret. No, perhaps after today, the 5 true immortals would regret their actions. His master was not an ordinary peak profound realm cultivator. Before he became an immortal, it was said that he had already made a name for himself in the Eastern Heaven with his Spirit Blast technique. It was said that Ning Fan's Spirit Blast technique was extremely powerful. It could instantly kill a mid-true crossing realm cultivator and severely injure a late true crossing realm cultivator. Perhaps, Ning Fan had the ability to solve the crisis of the Six Desires sect. Yuanzong, don't try to deceive us with lies. We will not be deceived by you. The 5 true immortals had long been blinded by greed. Even if Yuanzong really had a master to support him, they would still snatch this batch of 1 million years old spiritual herbs today. The old ancestor of the Zheng family took a step forward. He opened his mouth and breathed out a black mist. The black mist condensed into a black flag that was filled with devil chi. The name of this flag was the Ghost Controlling Flag. It contained the souls of billions of cultivators. Its power was boundless. It was the Tao weapon of the old ancestor of the Zheng family. Among the billions of souls, there were 30,000 void fragmentation realm souls, 72 life immortal realm souls and an early true crossing realm main soul. With this treasure in hand, the strength of the old ancestor of the Zheng family was rarely matched among the early true crossing realm cultivators in the entire Eastern Heaven. Souls, kill. The old ancestor of the Zheng family suddenly made a hand seal and hit the ghost controlling flag. In the next moment, a billion spirits covered the heavens and the earth as they swept out, and they assaulted the entire Six Desires sect. If these souls were allowed to enter the Six Desires planet, blood would certainly flow like a river on the planet. Not good. Sect Protecting Grand Formation. Open. Without any hesitation, Yuanzong took out a formation plate and activated the Sect Protecting Grand Formation of the Six Desires sect. Then, the formation light spread to the entire Six Desires planet. On the surface of the Six Desires planet, 6 layers of light screens of 6 colors rose. Under the defense of the 6 layers of formation light, not a single soul could break into the territory of the Six Desires planet. When the cultivators of the Six Desires planet saw Yuanzong taking action to protect the planet, each of them heaved a sigh of relief. Then, they prayed one after another, praying that the formation light would not be broken. Once the formation light was broken, Yuanzong would definitely not be able to fight against the 5 true immortals alone. The old ancestor of the Zheng family frowned. Then, he let out a cold humph and suddenly changed his hand seal. The billions of souls suddenly condensed and merged into one. A Yin soul giant suddenly appeared in the starry sky. It was condensed from billions of souls. The giant's cultivation was infinitely close to the middle stage of the crossing truth realm. He coldly stared at the formation light and suddenly let out a gloomy roar. Countless nebulae immediately appeared beneath his feet, within which lightning flowed. The giant roared towards the sky and punched out. A huge fist light with lightning flowing around it smashed into the Six Desires planet's star guardian array with a shrill roar. Boom! After a huge explosion, the entire Six Desires planet began to shake violently. Even so, the formation light did not shatter. What a powerful formation light! The expressions of the 5 true immortals, including the 2 elders of the heavenly ghost, changed. The cultivation of the Yin soul giant was close to the middle stage of the crossing truth realm. Yet, the power of his fist couldn't even leave half a crack on the formation. It was clear how amazing the defense of the formation was. Brother Zheng, I'll also lend you a hand and help you break the formation. Mother-child Dao sword, slash. A trace of ruthlessness flashed in the eyes of the old ancestor of the Zhao family. He also stepped forward and slapped the top of his head. The top of his head immediately opened and two sword rays, one black and one red, flew out. His Dao weapon was a pair of mother-child flying swords. The two sword rays pierced through the starry sky. The powerful sword energy caused all cultivators below the true immortal realm to feel suffocated and their eyes to stab with pain. The tyrannical sword rays cooperated with the attack of the Yin Soul Giant and bombarded the six-colored Grand Formation. In an instant, the entire Six Desires planet shook even more violently. For the first time, cracks started to appear on the six-colored array. Since Brother Zheng and Brother Zhao have made a move, how could I just stand by and watch? I'll lend you a hand right now. Devil transformation. The old ancestor of the Wang family sneered and formed a seal with his fingers. The pseudo-devil talisman turned into profound devil runes that instantly covered his entire body. His body instantly became monstrous devil chi. With every step he took, his body grew several times taller. After a few steps, his body was already 120,000 feet tall and he turned into a devil giant wearing iron armor. Devil sword, desolate sacrifice. The giant waved his hand and the surging devil chi turned into a huge black sword. This sword was neither a magic treasure nor a Dao weapon. Instead, it was a weapon that was transformed from a divine ability. It was a type of ancient devil martial technique. The old ancestor of the Wang family was a pseudo-ancient devil. He could barely use this technique and summon the devil sword. Break! The devil giant held the devil sword in his hand and swung it down from the sky, summoning a monstrous devil cloud. The destructive power of this sword combined with the attacks of the Yin Soul Giant and the old ancestor of the Zhao family. Under the joint attack of the three of them, more and more cracks appeared on the Grand Formation. 2 hours later, the first layer of formation light was already broken by the three of them. There were only 5 layers of formation light left in the star-protecting Grand Formation. Based on the speed of the 3 old ancestors, it was just a matter of time before they broke the remaining 5 layers of formation light. The moment the first layer of formation light was broken, countless cultivators on the Six Desires planet revealed a look of terror. Yuan Zhong's expression was also extremely unpleasant. He patted his storage pouch and took out a sound-transmitting jade tablet. Before Yuan Zhong left the Six Desires planet, Ning Fan had given him a sound-transmitting jade tablet and told him that he could use it to report to Yuan Zhong if there were any important matters. What Ning Fan meant was that Yuan Zhong should not use this jade tablet to communicate with Yuan Zhong unless something serious happened. It was to prevent Yuan Zhong from disturbing his cultivation. Even if he wanted to buy spiritual herbs, he did not need to inform Yuan Zhong through voice transmission. He just needed to wait for the time being. Yuan Zhong did not dare to disobey Ning Fan's order. After buying the spiritual herbs, he did not dare to disturb Ning Fan when he saw that Ning Fan had yet to come out from his seclusion. Since the Six Desires planet was surrounded, Yuan Zhong also did not dare to disturb Ning Fan's cultivation. However, the Six Desires sect had already reached a critical moment of life and death. Once the Grand Formation is broken, the sect's destruction would be imminent. Yuan Zhong had no choice but to send a voice transmission to inform Ning Fan that a calamity was about to befall the sect. Perhaps, Ning Fan could save the sect with the Spirit Blast technique. Perhaps, Ning Fan was still not a match for the 5 true immortals for the time being. No matter what the outcome was, Yuan Zhong had to inform Ning Fan about it. After sending the voice transmission, Yuan Zhong's eyes flashed with determination. If Ning Fan could not save the Six Desires sect today and could not defeat the 5 true immortals, Yuan Zhong would send Ning Fan away from the Six Desires planet safely even at the cost of his own life. Ning Fan was his master. He would never let his master die in this place. He. This Grand Formation is really quite mysterious. Fine. Let the two of us take action as well. The sooner we break the formation and get the spiritual herbs, the sooner we can save ourselves the trouble. The two elders of the heavenly ghosts sneered coldly. Each of them took a step forward and joined the fray to break the formation. Their cultivation bases were considered to be the highest in this place. Their sense of danger was also the sharpest. At the moment Yuanzong sent the voice transmission, the two of them actually felt uneasy for no reason. It was as if some kind of danger was approaching. This feeling made the two of them feel extremely uncomfortable. Perhaps the voice transmission Yuanzong sent just now was to ask for help from a certain expert. In order to avoid any trouble, it would be better for them to break the formation and snatch the spiritual herbs as soon as possible. The two of them formed hand seals at the same time. Then, a sea of blood appeared under their feet. The sea of blood was the form of their Tao soldiers. Under the control of the two elders of the heavenly devil sect, the two seas of blood turned into thousands of blood dragons. They brought along strong gales and fiercely collided with the formation light. The combined attack of the 5 true immortals was nearly as powerful as a strike from an expert at the peak crossing truth realm. After 100 breaths, the second layer of the formation light shattered. After 50 breaths, the third layer of the formation light shattered. After 30 breaths, the fourth layer of the formation light shattered. After 10 breaths, the fifth layer of the formation light shattered. After 3 breaths, the sixth layer of the formation light shattered. At this point, the sixth layer of the formation light shattered. At this point, the entire Six Desires planet was completely exposed in front of the 5 true immortals. Slaughter the stars. The 5 true immortals raised their heads and laughed. Each of them used their divine abilities to attack the Six Desires planet. At this moment, a vast aura comparable to the early stage of shedding void suddenly swept across the entire Six Desires planet. I am the master of the Six Desires planet. How dare you come to my Six Desires planet to cause trouble? You are courting death. As soon as the voice fell, an earth-shattering black fist light blasted out from the direction of the Six Desires sect's immortal king palace. As soon as the fist light blasted out, the whole world was shrouded in demonic light. The speed of the fist light was so fast that even a cultivator at the peak crossing truth realm couldn't dodge it. In the blink of an eye, the fist light blasted out of the Six Desires planet and into the starry sky. It landed in front of the Zhao family's patriarch, the Wang family's patriarch, the Zheng family's patriarch, and the 2 sky demon elders. The fist light suddenly split into 5 and smashed down fiercely. At this moment, the starry sky trembled violently. Giant spirit, destroyed. Mother-child Tao sword, shattered. The blood dragons that filled the sky died. The 5 true immortals were hit by the fist light at the same time. Each of their faces turned extremely pale. Just one punch had seriously injured the 5 of them. If another punch landed, the 5 of them would die for sure. For the first time, the 5 true immortals revealed a terrified expression. Almost at the same time, the 5 of them cried out in fear. Old monster shedding void. The Six Desires sect has old monster shedding void guarding it. Strong expert shedding void. We will definitely die after offending an old monster of that level. My life is over. The gap between crossing truth and shedding void was impossible to cross. Who would have thought that the Six Desires sect had shedding void guarding it? If they had known this earlier, they would not have dared to cause trouble at the Six Desires sect even if they had 10,000 times more courage. I will only give you 3 breaths of time to make your choice. Do you want to die or allow Ning Fan to plant a mental seal on you, become my slave and join my Six Desires sect? Under the starry sky, Ning Fan's white robes made him look like an immortal. His ferocious aura was like that of a devil. Beside him was a burly man wearing a black cloak. That burly man's entire body was emitting shedding void qi. That burly man was the ancient devil puppet. Yuanzong's expression changed greatly. He stared at Ning Fan in disbelief. He had guessed that Ning Fan might be able to solve the calamity of the Six Desires sect. However, he did not expect that Ning Fan could actually suppress the 5 true immortals with such a powerful stance. Master actually has a shedding void expert following him. What is going on? Yuan Zong was extremely shocked. There are no more updates. Let's wash up and go to sleep. Chapter 763. The ancient devil puppet's aura force, which was comparable to Shikong's aura force, shocked everyone present. Under its aura force, the entire starry sky trembled. No one dared to make a sound. The strongest expert here was only at the mid-nascent soul realm. Within a short period of time, no one could tell that the cloaked ancient devil puppet was not a living person. If they knew that the old monster Shikong who suddenly appeared in front of them was just a puppet, they would probably be even more astonished. Ning Fan moved forward step by step, entangling the puppet's strings with his fingers. The ancient devil puppet followed behind him obediently. When the two elders of the heavenly ghost, Yuan Zong, and the other two true immortals saw this scene, they were all shocked. They did not know what the ancient devil puppet was, but they could vaguely tell that Ning Fan and the ancient devil puppet had a master-servant relationship. Ning Fan was the master while the ancient devil was the servant. Even though they could not understand why a dignified old monster with Shikong's cultivation base would obey Ning Fan, who was only at the Ghost Profound realm. At this moment, Ning Fan's early Ghost Profound realm cultivation base was exposed in front of everyone without any concealment. The five true immortals did not know Ning Fan. All of them began to guess his identity and background. It was hard for them to imagine what kind of terrifying background Ning Fan had to have the qualifications to have a servant at the Shikong realm. One breath. Ning Fan's cold voice sounded like the voice of an undead spirit from the netherworld. It resounded once again and entered the ears of the two elders of the heavenly ghost and the other true immortals. As soon as his voice fell, the ancient devil puppet took a step forward. The devil chi around his body was monstrous. Countless cracks of the laws of the starry sky were left behind by his step. The great momentum was crushed by the ancient devil puppet with a single step. The destructive force went towards the two elders of the heavenly ghost and the others. Under the destructive force, the five true immortals coughed out blood and were forced to retreat. They did not have the strength to resist at all. Each of their faces was filled with fear. Only then did they remember that Ning Fan had only given them 3 breaths to make a choice. Either be a slave or die. At such a chaotic moment, how could they have the time to think about Ning Fan's identity and background? I'm a true immortal after all. How can I be a slave to a mere Ghost Profound realm cultivator like you? The old ancestor of the Zheng family harumphed angrily. He took out an immortal talisman from his sleeve and slapped it on his chest. Then, his body turned into a ray of light and fled 10 billion li in just a breath. He was arrogant by nature. He knew that he was no match for Shikong Lao, but he was not willing to become someone else's slave. Ning Fan's expression was as cold as before. He hooked the puppet string with his finger, and the ancient devil puppet beside him suddenly raised its fist and hurled a punch at the direction where the old ancestor of the Zheng family had escaped. Streaks of blood-red ancient demon talismans filled the starry sky. A fist projection covered in crimson lightning flashed across the distance of 5 billion kilometers before crashing into the body of the Zheng family patriarch. Bang! In the dark starry sky 10 billion miles away, blood-red lightning suddenly shook the world and rumbled endlessly. After the fist energy killed the Zheng family's ancestor, it turned into endless lightning. Even from 10 billion miles away, the blinding blood color could be seen. The ancient devil puppet's face was expressionless. It took a step forward and instantly vanished without a trace. At the next moment, it returned to its original spot and handed over the primordial spirit and storage pouch of the Zheng family's old ancestor to Ning Fan. 2 breaths. In front of the remaining 4 true immortal realm enemies, Ning Fan kept the storage pouch of the old ancestor of the Zheng family and searched his soul and memories on the spot. This scene shocked the remaining 4 perfected immortal enemies. The old ancestor of the Zheng family was unwilling to be Ning Fan's slave. That was why he could not escape death. If they refused to be Ning Fan's slaves, they would probably end up in a miserable state. Without waiting for Ning Fan to count to the 3rd breath, the 4 perfected immortal realm enemies exchanged glances with each other. They suppressed the regret and unwillingness in their hearts and clenched their teeth. Then, they cupped their fists at Ning Fan and said, "We're willing to be your slaves." If they refused to be slaves, what awaited them was death. They had no other choice at all. Ning Fan did not waste time talking to the four of them. He spread his spirit sense and planted a restrictive thought in their sea of consciousness. How would the four of them dare to resist? They allowed the restrictive thought to be planted in them. From now on, their life and death would be under Ning Fan's control. They were filled with regret. They regretted why they attacked the Six Desires sect for the 5,500 tufts of spiritual herbs. If they knew that the Six Desires sect had such a strong backer, how would they dare to provoke them? How would they end up as slaves? The faces of the old ancestor of the Zhao family, the old ancestor of the Wang family and the two elders of the heavenly ghost were filled with regret. Yuan Zong's face was still filled with disbelief. Until now, he still could not believe that Ning Fan actually had a void-shedding servant following him. All of a sudden, Yuan Zong seemed to have discovered something extremely shocking. His expression changed greatly as he stared at the ancient devil puppet. The two elders of the heavenly ghost and the others also noticed the strange behavior of the ancient devil puppet. Their eyes were filled with astonishment once again. "Master, this senior is..." Yuan Zong calmed himself down. As if he was trying to ascertain something, he pointed at the ancient devil puppet beside Ning Fan and inquired. "A puppet?" Ning Fan did not conceal the identity of the ancient devil puppet. Due to Ning Fan's sudden appearance earlier, none of them had the time to see through his identity. At this moment, Yuan Zong and the others could vaguely tell that the ancient devil puppet was not a living person. Since that was the case, there was no need for them to conceal the identity of the ancient devil puppet. What? It's really a puppet. A puppet that is comparable to void-shedding servant. All of a sudden, the expressions of Yuan Zong, the old ancestor of the Zhao family, the old ancestor of the Wang family and the two elders of the heavenly ghost changed greatly. Ning Fan, however, continued to search the soul of the old ancestor of the Zheng family without any change in his expression. After searching all of the memories of the old ancestor of the Zheng family, Ning Fan used a secret technique to refine the primordial spirit of the old ancestor of the Zheng family and kept it into his soul pouch. Divine Blast Technique. Could Master be? The expressions of the old ancestor of the Zhao family, the old ancestor of the Wang family and the two elders of the heavenly ghost changed. They recognized that the primordial spirit that Ning Fan refined was the secret version of the Divine Blast Technique. Tens of years ago, when Ning Fan first entered the Eastern Heaven, his name shook the entire Eastern Heaven with the Divine Blast Technique. The old ancestor of the Zhao family and the others were quite far away from the star region where Ning Fan was. Thus, they did not pay much attention to Ning Fan. Neither did they recognize Ning Fan's appearance. However, they had vaguely heard of Ning Fan's name. Now, as soon as they saw the Divine Blast Technique, they could vaguely guess Ning Fan's identity. For a moment, the four of them wore extremely strange expressions. Sometimes, they would even sigh deeply. Who would have thought that a Void Fragmentation Realm Junior who had just joined the Slaughter Palace a few decades ago would actually become their master after a few decades? Who would have thought that Ning Fan could cultivate from the peak-shattering realm to the early Ghost Profound realm in just a few decades and even possess a void-shedding puppet? Even Yuan Zong did not expect Ning Fan to be at the early Ghost Profound realm today. 7 years ago, Ning Fan was only at the peak Mortal Profound realm. Yuan Zong also did not expect that Ning Fan would have a void-shedding puppet in his hands, which allowed him to easily resolve the great calamity of the Six Desires sect. For the first time in his life, Yuan Zong felt that he could not see through a life-immortal realm cultivator. He felt that Ning Fan was too profound and unfathomable. As soon as the old ancestor of the Zheng family died, the Zheng family became a place without a master. Under Ning Fan's order, Yuan Zong and the other four true immortals acted aggressively and destroyed the Zheng family, completely erasing their name from the Eastern Heaven. All the cultivators of the Zheng family, Zhao family, and Wang family were planted with a mental seal and merged into the Six Desires sect. The 2 elders of the heavenly ghost also joined the 6 desires sect as a guest elder. The 74,000 cultivation planets in the entire 6 desires star region were all incorporated into the 6 desires sect sphere of influence. The 6 desires star region was unified. Under Ning Fan's strict order, Yuan Zong and the others did not reveal the fact that Ning Fan had become the master of the 6 desires star region. Within the territory of the 6 desires star region, the memories of every cultivator who saw the ancient devil puppet attack were all erased by Ning Fan. Ning Fan did not want others to know that he possessed an ancient devil puppet that was comparable to Shi Kong, and he also did not want them to know that he had become the master of the 6 desires star region. If these 2 matters were to spread out, Ning Fan would once again attract the attention of countless old monsters in the eastern heaven, just like how he did 10 years ago. At this moment, Ning Fan did not want to attract anyone's attention because what he wanted to do next needed to be done in a low-profile manner. He had already decided to steal the Joss flames of the entire eastern heaven on a large scale. It was not a good thing to attract too much attention. The total savings of the Zhao family, Wang family, and Zheng family amounted to about 400 billion Dao crystals. All of them were used by Ning Fan to purchase 1 million years old spiritual herbs. The outside world was widely rumored that the 6 desires sect had found a powerful backer who forcefully subdued the 3 great true immortal realm forces and unified the entire 6 desires star region. However, no one knew who the backer of the 6 desires sect was. In the blink of an eye, 1 year had passed. In the profound Yin world, Ning Fan sat down with his legs crossed and cultivated diligently. Once he did so, he cultivated the 3 flowers converging prominence technique. During this 1 year, Ning Fan had refined a total of 8,400 tufts of 1 million years old spiritual herbs. Beside him was a lead-colored lotus flower. The lead-colored lotus flower had 12 petals, and each petal was lead-colored. The 3 flowers converging prominence technique had been completely cultivated to the great perfection realm of the first flower. With a single thought from Ning Fan, 1 million lead-colored lotus shadows densely covered the entire area. Even an early true immortal realm true immortal would find it difficult to break through the powerful defense of the lotus. Looking at the lotus shadows that filled the sky, Ning Fan smiled in satisfaction. He kept the lotus shadows and slowly stood up. Since I have already cultivated the first flower to the great perfection realm, I should be able to start cultivating the second flower. Unfortunately, one of the prerequisites for cultivating the second flower is to possess ancestral grade divine blood. Forget it. I can't force myself to have ancestral grade divine blood. I can put the cultivation of the second flower aside for now. As for the trip to the Supreme Pill's sacred region, I need to make a good plan. There were still about 10 years before the opening of the Supreme Pill's sacred region. He had an appointment with Oh Youngwon. 10 years later, he would go to the medicine sect and accompany her to enter the Supreme Pill's sacred region. He would never forget this matter. He had enough time to rush to the 100 Herbs Star region where the medicine sect was located. Along the way, he would pass by thousands of star regions and there would be plenty of opportunities to steal Joss flames. Moreover, he would also pass by the Quicksand Star region along the way. Quicksand Star region, Quicksand's secret place, ancient god's cave of time. This was a secret place that Lu Xian told him about. There was a great fortune hidden there. Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly solemn. If he passes by the Quicksand Star region, he must enter that ancient god's cave of time and search for a good fortune. He patted his storage pouch and took out the Joss Flame Demon puppet. Looking at the puppet, Ning Fan fell into deep thought. The Joss Flame Demon puppet could steal the Joss flames of others. Since it was damaged, its power was greatly reduced. If it steals the Joss flames of living people, it could at most steal the Joss flames of true enlightenment realm cultivators. However, if it steals the Joss flames of the dead, it could barely steal the Joss flames of a void abandoning realm cultivator. The old ancestor of the Yao family was a void abandoning realm cultivator. However, because he had fallen a long time ago, Ning Fan easily took away the Joss flames that he had collected from the golden body of the temple. If the old ancestor of the Yao family was still alive, Ning Fan would never be able to steal his Joss flames no matter what. After keeping the Joss flame demon puppet, Ning Fan scanned the cauldron world with his spirit sense and then his sword pouch. Within the sword pouch, the 5 little girls were meditating with their eyes closed, comprehending the way of the sword. After not seeing each other for 7 years, their auras had grown. In the cauldron world, Mu Weiliang had yet to come out and Zili was still breaking through in the demon cocoon. Withdrawing his spirit sense, Ning Fan shook his head with a smile. These little girls are all busy with their work. With a flash, he left the profound Yin world and returned to the 6 Desires sect. Outside the forbidden area of the 6 Desires sect, only Yuan Zong was left. 1 year ago, the old ancestor of the Zhao family, the old ancestor of the Wang family and the 2 elders of the heavenly ghost were all sent by Ning Fan to various star regions to collect medicine soul stones. The medicine soul stone was a special kind of ore. When an alchemist refined it, it could replenish the consumed medicine soul power. There were too many ancient era's immortal medicines in the extreme Dan sanctuary, and the medicinal qi was too strong. When cultivators entered, they would need to use the power of their medicine soul to resist the medicinal qi at all times. Once the power of one's medicine soul was depleted, it would be difficult for them to resist the Saint Realm's medicine qi. It was extremely dangerous. Therefore, the cultivators who entered the extreme Dan sanctuary would usually carry a large number of medicine soul stones to replenish their medicine soul power at any time. Moreover, there were many secret sealed places in the extreme Dan sanctuary. The seals of the secret places could only be broken by using enough medicine soul stones. In order to enter the sealed secret places to search for opportunities, one would need to spend a large number of medicine soul stones. There were still 10 years before the opening of the extreme Dan sanctuary. Many forces in the eastern sky were purchasing medicine soul stones on a large scale. Without certain connections, one would not be able to buy medicine soul stones at all. Most of the medicine soul stones on the trading planets were already sold out. In the eastern sky, the medicine soul stones were currently in a state where there was a demand but there was no supply. Ning Fan naturally did not have the time to buy medicine soul stones himself. Perhaps Ouyang Nuan would prepare some for him. However, he still decided to prepare some himself. The more the better. Anyway, the matter of purchasing medicine soul stones had already been handed over to his subordinates. There was nothing wrong with preparing a few more. Yuan Zong greets master. As soon as he saw Ning Fan walk out of the forbidden area, Yuan Zong immediately stepped forward and cupped his fists. His expression was full of respect. From being polite and friendly to being respectful and humble, then to being awed and impressed. Yuan Zong's attitude towards Ning Fan changed again and again. In the past, Yuan Zong only acknowledged Ning Fan as his master because of the ancestors' will. Now, even without the ancestors' will, Yuan Zong was also willing to acknowledge Ning Fan as his master. 1 year ago, Ning Fan controlled the shedding void puppet and forcefully saved the 6 Desires sect from disaster. He unified the 6 Desires star region and won Yuan Zong's respect. Dispense with the formalities. How's the collection of medicine soul stones going? Master, Zhao Jian, Wang Ling, Qi Tiangui and Yan Tiangui are gathering medicine soul stones in various star regions. Currently, they have already collected several thousand pieces. The 4 names Yuan Zong mentioned were the names of the 4 true immortals who had surrendered to him. Only several thousand pieces, huh? It's a little too little. Normally, when people enter the extreme Dan sanctuary, they would bring more than 100,000 medicine soul stones with them. Within 10 years, they have to prepare at least 100,000 medicine soul stones. Naturally, it's better if they can collect more. 10 years later, all of you will meet me at the place where the extreme Dan sanctuary will be opened. Then, hand over the medicine soul stones to me. Ning Fan gave Yuan Zong and the others a strict order, ordering them to collect more than 100,000 medicine soul stones within 10 years. After that, Ning Fan left the 6 Desires star region alone, a few months after Ning Fan left, the old ancestor of the Zhao family, Zhao Jian, suddenly sent a message to him. Good news! Good news! I've found an ancient secret place of cultivators by chance in the Stone Creek Star region. There is actually an entire mine of medicine soul stones in it. I've made a preliminary estimation. If we excavate all the medicine soul stones in the mine, we'll be able to excavate at least a few million of them. The total value is more than 300 billion Dao crystals. Yuan Zong, quickly tell this good news to Master. Master has already left the Six Desires Star a few months ago. Yuan Zong told Zhao Jian about Ning Fan's order. Master is actually not on the Six Desires Star. Fine. Inform the others to come to the Stone Creek Star region. We'll work together and excavate all the medicine soul stones in this mine. 10 years later, we'll certainly give Master a pleasant surprise. We'll also make a great contribution. Ning Fan did not know that as soon as he left the Six Desires Star, he had obtained a mine of medicine soul stones that was left behind by an ancient cultivator. The current him was only thinking about stealing incense. In the past few months, Ning Fan had flown past hundreds of low-grade and mid-grade star regions while riding on the Blood Lotus spirit equipment. During that time, he had taken action several times. He used the ghost mask to conceal himself and used the incense demon puppets to steal the incense from the clan temples of 12 Duzhen forces and 87 life immortal forces. It was his first time stealing incense on a large scale. Most of the incense he stole were from the living. The total amount of incense from those forces was not even 1/10,000th of the incense from the progenitor of the Yao family. This little amount of incense was far from enough for Ning Fan to break through to the next cultivation level. To second-step cultivators, the power of incense was a great method to increase their cultivation level. Therefore, second-step cultivators in the four heavens would usually build their own golden temples for people to worship and collect incense. These second-step cultivators would take their own incense once every 10 years or even hundreds of years. Thus, they basically could not steal too much incense from the living and could not accumulate any incense at all. Unlike the progenitor of the Yao family who had been dead for millions of years, his incense had also accumulated for millions of years. As expected, I still have to take advantage of the wealth of the dead. Ning Fan sighed softly and decided to steal the incense from the dead. The cultivation world was cruel and selfish. The death of a person was like an extinguished lamp. No matter how revered a person was, he or she might gradually be forgotten after death. It was just like the past sect masters of the Six Desires sect. Most of them had the cultivation base of a true immortal realm cultivator, but none of them had unparalleled achievements. Thus, they could not be revered by others for generations to come. Once they die, their incense would also be cut off. Only the progenitor of the Yao family, who was a heaven-shaking and earth-shattering figure who created the spirit explosion technique and injured an immortal emperor with his empty cultivation base, was still worshipped and revered by the cultivators of the eastern heaven for millions of years after his death. Ning Fan summed up his experience in stealing incense. If he wanted to steal, he would steal the incense of the dead. Moreover, he had to steal the incense of the dead who were famous throughout the world when they were alive. Since his incense demon puppet was damaged, Ning Fan could only steal the incense of the dead at the empty shedding realm at most. The old ancestors of the empty shedding realm who were famous throughout the world were basically from various high-grade star regions. From the star region where Ning Fan was now to the 100 Herbs star region, he had to pass through a total of 11 high-grade star regions. Among these 11 star regions, only 4 of them had produced a famous empty shedding realm great expert like the progenitor of the Yao family. After the 4 great experts of the empty shedding realm had fallen, their incense had not been cut off until now. Some of them had at least accumulated 2 million years worth of incense while some of them had accumulated 8 to 9 million years worth of incense. If he wanted to steal, he would steal the incense of the 4 dead experts. Among the 4 of them, the closest one was born in the Quicksand Star region. He was the clan leader of the Quicksand clan in the 476th generation. People call him Taoist Quicksand. Before he died, his cultivation base was already at the peak of the empty shedding realm. The reason why this person's name shook the eastern heaven and his prestige did not diminish in the past was very simple. This Taoist quicksand was one of the few experts who had comprehended the secret technique of time in the history of the eastern heaven immortal world. His most famous achievement was reversing 10,000 years of time with a single finger, reducing the cultivation base of an ancient immortal venerable by 10,000 years. The quicksand star region, huh? It seems like there are quite a lot of things that I have to do in this star region. Ning Fan patted his storage pouch and took out the star compass of the quicksand star region. Then, he flew towards the star region at full speed. Half a year later, Ning Fan had flown past more than 1,000 star regions and arrived at the quicksand star region. As soon as he entered the quicksand star region, the demonic chi that filled the entire star region instantly made Ning Fan's eyes turn cold. In the starry sky, there were broken limbs and corpses of fallen beasts floating everywhere. Some of the low-grade cultivation planets had already been destroyed by someone. As his thoughts raced, Ning Fan could vaguely guess that a huge change had probably happened in the quicksand star region. Far away from him, hundreds of gigantic ice beasts were desperately chasing after a group of cultivators. That group of cultivators had a total of 7 people. All of them were at the life immortal realm. The strongest among them was an old monster at the late human profound realm. He was riding on a gigantic blood-red demonic bird. The 7 of them fled all the way, looking extremely miserable. There were more than 500 giant ice beasts chasing after the 7 of them. Each of them had chi that was comparable to a rogue immortal realm cultivator. Among them, there were 22 gigantic beasts whose chi was comparable to the profound mortal realm. The body of the beast in the lead was nearly as large as a low-grade cultivation planet. Its chi had already reached the ghost profound realm. As soon as the 7 cultivators who were fleeing for their lives saw Ning Fan, they immediately rushed towards him, looking like they wanted to ask for help. Ning Fan frowned. He did not like to get involved in other people's disputes. Suddenly, Ning Fan's gaze fell on the cultivator who was riding on the blood-red demonic bird. Then, he withdrew his expression and flew towards that group of people. He actually had the intention to help them. I owe this person a favor on the Shaozi star in the past. Today, I will help him. Chapter 764. The elderly man who was riding on a blood-red demonic bird was short and skinny. The baleful chi around him was extremely strong. He was none other than Xue Kongzi, who had bought Ning Fan's true spirit blood goose on the Shaozi star. As for the demon pet he was riding, it was none other than the true spirit blood goose that Ning Fan had obtained from his divine chests. In the past, Xue Kongzi had bought Ning Fan's true spirit blood goose at double the price and helped Ning Fan resolve the trouble of the 7 Fiends sect. His domineering attack had severely injured the sect master of the 7 Fiends sect. After that, Xue Kongzi borrowed the strength of the real blood goose and started to cultivate in seclusion to break through to the late human profound realm. The cultivation art he cultivated was closely related to the true spirit blood goose. He was originally at the middle stage of the human profound realm, and he was only half a step away from the late stage. With the help of the true spirit blood goose, it was only a matter of time before he broke through to the late stage after several decades of secluded cultivation. He was originally a devil. Wherever there was a fortuitous opportunity, he would fight for it. He had come to the quicksand star field this time to look for opportunities, but he had never expected that not long after Xue Kongzi had arrived in the quicksand star field, the quicksand star field would undergo a shocking change. Within the quicksand starry sea, there were countless celestial mountains. One day, a celestial mountain suddenly collapsed, revealing the hundreds of thousands of divine treasures beneath it. A life immortal recklessly cut open one of the divine treasures to see what was inside. Who would have thought that all of this would lead to a massive wave of demons? Sealed in the divine treasure was an ancient ferocious beast with enlightenment realm cultivation. Once the beast woke up, it swallowed the life immortal who had cut open the divine treasures. It then cut open all the divine treasures and released hundreds of thousands of powerful demon beasts. Half of Quicksand Galaxy was destroyed by the wave of demons. The Quicksand Star Ocean had become the territory of the demonic beasts. The strongest force in the Quicksand Galaxy, the Quicksand Clan, was currently gathering their elites to launch a counterattack against the demon wave, but the results were minimal. The current Quicksand Patriarch was a cultivator at the early stage of crossing Truth Realm. Including the Patriarch of the Quicksand Tribe, there were only 4 true immortals gathered in the Quicksand Tribe, and all of them were at the early stage of crossing Truth. On the other side of the Demon Tide, there were more than 10 vicious beasts of the Dujin realm. Up until now, the human race had been at a disadvantage in this battle between the human race and the demon race. Unfortunately, Xue Kongzi had been dragged into this storm. He had accepted the reward from the Quicksand Tribe and agreed to help them fight against the Demon Tide. However, he didn't expect that he would be so unlucky. In the first battle, they were ambushed by a large number of ferocious beasts. More than half of the team died, and only 7 people survived, including Xue Kongzi. Xue Kongzi's injuries were not light. Otherwise, with his ferocious personality, he would not have been willing to be chased by a horde of demons. He would have at least retaliated. Seeing that the group of beasts was about to catch up to him, Xue Kongzi could not help but look up to the sky and sigh. Am I, Xue Kongzi, going to die in the Quicksand Star Field? While he was lamenting, Xue Kongzi suddenly noticed a human cultivator standing in the starry sky not far away. Although he couldn't see through this person's aura, he could roughly tell that this person was a life celestial. As a result, Xue Kongzi could not help but want to ask this person for help. The 6 life immortals who were escaping with him also wanted to ask for help. If it was in the past, Xue Kongzi and the other old monsters would certainly not trust a stranger easily and ask for help rashly. Now that the demon tide had engulfed the entire Quicksand Star Field, all the humans in the star field could be considered as companions. In such a critical moment, the cultivators trusted each other more than before. Xue Kongzi wanted to ask this person for help. Even though the other party might just be an early mortal profound realm cultivator, he would still be of great help. In times of crisis, one more person would mean one more portion of strength. One more person would mean one more chance of survival. As soon as he made up his mind, Xue Kongzi and the others ran towards Ning Fan's direction with all their might, as if they saw a life-saving straw when they were about to drown. Just as the 7 life immortals were about to ask Ning Fan for help, he frowned and prepared to leave this place and stay out of this matter. When Xue Kongzi saw this, he smiled bitterly and swallowed all the words he wanted to ask for help back into his stomach. The cultivation world was selfish and cruel in the first place. Who would be willing to risk being devoured by hundreds of ferocious beasts just to save a few strangers? The other 6 life immortals were all severely injured. Their chi had already weakened. When they saw that Ning Fan wanted to escape alone, all of their faces were filled with despair. Commander Xue, what should we do now? Our magic power has already been depleted. I'm afraid we won't be able to run far before they catch up to us. Let's just fight to the death with these evil creatures. A middle-aged scholar's eyes glinted with ferocious light. He did not plan to run anymore. Since they could not run away, they could only fight to the death and find a way to survive. The one who was addressed as Commander Xue was none other than Xue Kongzi. Today, he had received the reward from the Quicksand clan and became a foreign elder of the clan. Now, he could lead a group of cultivators to fight against the demon tide. Fine. Since it's useless to run anymore, let's just fight to the death. If the 7 of us use the immortal breaking technique at the same time, we can suppress all our injuries in a short period of time and kill these evil creatures with all our might. Perhaps, we might even have a chance to escape. Unfortunately, the price of using the immortal breaking technique is too great. Once we use this technique, we will fall back to the void fragmentation realm. However, compared to death, a drop in cultivation level is nothing. Xue Kongzi's eyes flashed with killing intent. He abruptly turned the true spirit blood goose around and turned around with the other 6 life immortal realm cultivators, preparing to face the demon tide head-on. At this moment, the 500+ ferocious beasts who were chasing after Ning Fan suddenly seemed to have seen something extremely terrifying. Their eyes were filled with terror and they retreated several tens of thousands of zhang away. Some of the ferocious beasts could not suppress the fear in their hearts. They roared at the sky. Their roars were trembling uncontrollably and carried unconcealable fear. They were fearful. Of course, they were not afraid of Xue Kongzi and the other 6 injured life immortal realm cultivators. Instead, they were afraid of the white-robed young man who was approaching them step by step. As soon as they saw the beasts retreating, Xue Kongzi and the others were shocked and turned their heads around. Only then did the 7 of them realize that Ning Fan, who wanted to leave this place just now, had changed his mind for some reason and came to their aid. However, what Xue Kongzi and the others could not understand was what Ning Fan did to make the beasts feel such a strong sense of danger and make them retreat with fear. Even though the beasts had temporarily retreated, they did not really leave. They were still watching. Xue Kongzi and the others could not see through Ning Fan's ferocious aura, but the demonic beasts could sense a strong sense of danger from him based on their instincts. Intuition told the beasts that this white-robed youth who had suddenly appeared was not to be trifled with. However, the beast horde had received an order to kill Xue Kongzi and the others. They wouldn't dare to return to the Quicksand Star Ocean without accomplishing this order. Even though they knew that Ning Fan was not someone to be trifled with, none of the beasts dared to disobey his orders or leave the battlefield without permission. Due to Ning Fan's aura force, none of the beasts dared to attack Xue Kongzi and the others. Xue Kongzi and the others heaved a sigh of relief. One after another, they cupped their fists at Ning Fan. "Thank you for your help, fellow Taoist. May I know how to address you?" The tone of the 7 life immortal realm cultivators was very polite. Even though they could not see through Ning Fan's exact cultivation base, they could tell from the way the beasts were afraid of Ning Fan that his abilities were not weak. Thus, they could not underestimate him. "Fellow Taoist Xue Kongzi, do you not recognize me anymore?" Ning Fan's eyes glanced past the other 6 life immortal realm cultivators and only looked at Xue Kongzi. "Fellow Taoist, your surname is Ning. I do know a few friends with the surname Ning, but you don't seem to be one of them." Xue Kongzi's eyes flashed with vigilance. Obviously, the white-robed young man in front of him knew him. However, Xue Kongzi did not recognize this person among the friends he knew. He had quite a lot of enemies. Could it be that this white-robed young man in front of him is my enemy? If he really is my enemy, I'm afraid that I, Xue Kongzi, will really have to give up my life here since there are wolves in front of me and tigers behind me. Xue Kongzi did not recognize that Ning Fan was the person who sold him the true spirit blood goose on Shaoza Star. Not long after he obtained the true spirit blood goose, he went into seclusion to break through to the late human profound realm. Thus, he did not know that Ning Fan had a bounty of 10 billion yuan from the Pill sect, destroyed the Yao sect star region, joined the Slaughter Palace and many other things. Naturally, his impression of Ning Fan was already blurred. He did not pay attention to this junior at all. In the past, when he helped Ning Fan punish the 7 Fiend sect, it was completely out of a sudden interest. He did not expect anything in return. He did not remember meeting Ning Fan at all. "Fellow Taoist Xue, have you forgotten? I was the one who sold you the true spirit blood goose." Ning Fan smiled and reminded him. As soon as Ning Fan mentioned the true spirit blood goose, Xue Kongzi suddenly slapped his forehead and remembered. "So it's you." Then, Xue Kongzi looked at Ning Fan in disbelief. He could not believe that the junior who had yet to cultivate to the peak void fragmentation realm in the past was already an immortal now. "Fellow Taoist Xue, you helped me punish the 7 Fiends sect in the past. Today, I will return the favor." As soon as he finished speaking, Ning Fan stepped forward and walked past the crowd towards the group of ferocious beasts. Judging from the situation, he was actually going to fight against 500 ferocious beasts alone. The expressions of the 7 life immortal realm experts including Xue Kongzi changed. They did not think that Ning Fan could fight against the group of ferocious beasts alone. Especially Xue Kongzi. After confirming Ning Fan's identity, he only thought that Ning Fan's cultivation base was at the early human profound realm. In his impression, Ning Fan's speed of cultivation from the 7th heavenly layer of the void fragmentation realm to the early human profound realm in less than 100 years was already heaven-defying. It was impossible for him to reach the mid-human profound realm, let alone the late-human profound realm. Among the group of ferocious beasts, there were 22 life immortal realm ferocious beasts, and one of them was even a profound ghost realm ferocious beast. Ning Fan wanting to fight against the group of ferocious beasts alone was undoubtedly an act of hitting a rock with an egg. Just as Xue Kongzi was about to dissuade Ning Fan, his eyes suddenly widened and he stared at Ning Fan in disbelief. The other 6 life immortal realm experts were also looking at Ning Fan in astonishment. Their eyes were filled with joy. At this moment, Ning Fan's early ghost profound realm aura force spread in all directions without any reservation. This fellow Taoist is actually a ghost profound realm expert. Now, we are really saved. The other 6 life immortal realm experts were overjoyed. Ghost profound realm. It's actually ghost profound realm. How is it possible for him to advance from the 7th void fragmentation realm to the ghost profound realm in less than 100 years? The astonishment in Xue Kongzi's eyes was not something that the life immortal realm experts beside him could understand. Xue Kongzi had spent tens of thousands of years of hard work to advance from the early human profound realm to the mid-human profound realm. Then, he spent another tens of thousands of years to advance to the late human profound realm. However, Ning Fan had advanced from the 7th heavenly layer of the void fragmentation realm to the early ghost profound realm within 100 years. This kind of speed made him speechless. Xue Kongzi looked at Ning Fan's back with a complicated expression. The junior who cut the stone for him in the past had now left him far behind. Early ghost profound realm. He, Xue Kongzi, did not even know if he could reach the early ghost profound realm in his lifetime. Ning Fan walked towards the group of beasts. Every time he took a step forward, the beasts would take a step back in panic. Each of the gigantic beasts was terrifyingly huge, especially the early ghost profound realm ferocious beast. Its body was as huge as a low-grade cultivation planet. When it moved, it was like the stars were changing their orbits, producing loud rumbling sounds in the starry sky. Each of the ferocious beasts looked at Ning Fan with instinctive fear. To them, Ning Fan was really too dangerous. However, they could not retreat. They must complete their mission and kill Xue Kongzi and the others. I have no intention of getting involved in the battle between the human race and the demon race. If all of you retreat now, I can spare your lives. Ning Fan said indifferently. Roar. As soon as the group of beasts heard Ning Fan's words, they raised their heads and roared furiously. They were showing their determination. They would not retreat. They would rather die in battle than retreat. I'm sorry. I have underestimated you. A true demon has an indomitable spirit. Why would they be afraid of death? Ning Fan tapped the ground with the tip of his feet. Suddenly, a strong aura force burst out from his body and he dashed towards the group of beasts. His eyes were as calm as still water. He did not have any grudges against these demonic beasts. He treated humans and demons equally without any prejudice. The reason why he decided to kill these demonic beasts here had nothing to do with race or good or evil. It was just to save Xue Kongzi and return him a favor. They just had different standpoints. Therefore, he and these ferocious beasts were enemies. It was just like an eagle and a snake, a tiger and a deer, a wolf and a rabbit. The word enemy was only about standpoints. It had nothing to do with right or wrong. Seeing Ning Fan charging towards them, the group of beasts opened their huge mouths and breathed out cold air. All of a sudden, the starry sky within billions of li was covered with frost. When Xue Kongzi and the other life immortal realm cultivators saw the incoming cold air, their faces turned pale with fright. Their group of 20 life immortal realm cultivators was hit by this cold chi ability. That was why 13 of them died and 7 of them were injured. They were instantly defeated. Even a mid-ghost profound realm cultivator would be severely injured if they were to face this cold chi ability that froze the starry sky. The 7 of them were already heavily injured and their magic power was completely exhausted. If they were to be attacked by the cold air again, they would definitely die. While they were still in shock, a black wall of fire suddenly rose into the sky and surrounded the 7 of them, isolating them from the cold air. Through the gaps of the fire wall, Shui Kongzi and the others were shocked to see that Ning Fan was actually unscathed despite standing under the layers of cold qi. With Ning Fan's great 5 elements physique, how could he be afraid of the cold qi of a group of beasts? Ning Fan lifted his foot and stomped on the ground, shattering all the ice in the sky. Then, with a sway of his body, he transformed into a 270,000 zhang tall white-robed giant. As he swung his fist, the fierce beasts were smashed into meat paste one after another. With a stomp of his foot, he trampled the clamoring beasts to death. Ning Fan's ancient devil cultivation base was already at the 4th heavenly layer of the Sichen realm. The strength of his ancient devil physical body was even stronger than ordinary 5th severance body cultivators. The 5th severance of the immortal body corresponded to the early stage of the profound spirit realm. Just by relying on his physical body, Ning Fan was already strong enough to sweep away all early ghost profound realm experts. Bang! 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 Be it rogue immortal realm ferocious beasts or life immortal realm ferocious beasts, none of them could withstand the might of his punches and kicks. Countless ferocious beasts roared and roared. Even though they were obviously afraid, they still rushed towards Ning Fan and breathed out cold air. Although he was afraid, he still fought. One after another, the ferocious beasts died under Ning Fan's punches. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, all 500 ferocious beasts were dead, leaving only the early ghost profound realm ferocious beast. His body was as huge as a low-grade cultivation planet. In front of him, Ning Fan who was 70,000 zhang tall was like a tiny human. Ning Fan leaped into the sky and punched the top of the ferocious beast's head. With just one punch, the incomparably huge body of the ferocious beast immediately began to fall apart. Amidst the heavy rumbling sounds, it exploded into a bloody mist. Killing with one punch.